The game's to be sold, not told. So we finna keep everybody broke. They say time is money. They say money talk. I ain't got no time to waste it. You ain't got no time. Out and about, out chasing paper. The streets of my house and the house always wins like Vegas. Never down for the count. Second win, second nature. Found mine. Never had my hands out. Fuck favors. By design, everything tailored. In my youth, it was shell toes, no Chuck Taylors. We choke game, how to have a game, so it's still the same code game, so it's still the same code. We all pay the cost, I mean pay dues. Move with the mind state that I can't lose. On the grind, push a hard line with my linemen. Back when I was young, they said it's all about timing. Feel it's my time, all the stars are aligning. I'm a diamond in the rough, couple cuts got me shining. This game you cannot cop on consignment. In the field, all we do is execute assignments. The game's to be sold, not told. So we finna keep everybody broke. They say time is money, they say money talk. I ain't got no time to waste if you ain't got no time to talk. The game's to be sold, not told. So we finna keep everybody broke. They say time is money, they say money talk. I ain't got no time to waste if you ain't got no time to talk.
First, we get into this paper. See, I want it all, plus a mule and 8 acres, a lot of alcohol, few dad bags of paper. Run this shit like a ship and I'm the sailor. Cold, kinda like it's fresh up out the freezer. Cold, if she ain't talking bread, I don't need her. Soon as I meet her, I'ma fuck her, then I leave her. It's the old Mac knees, treat them all like bottom feeders. Break it down slow for them folks that don't know. I'm a seasoned vet, black belt out the dojo. With a wide range of weapons, so I'm out the holster. Keeping all options open, so many ways that I can fold ya. Told you from the gate, never been about no play. Get it on the go, they never been known for no delay. The game should be sold, not to be told. Keep your mouth shut, don't have to break the mold. Mac knees.
Break the work down, it's fence to move. Push that work out, I distribute. Break the work down, it's fence to move. Push that work out, I just distribute. A young pack mover, shot to my consumer. Jumping out the foreign or I'm hopping out the Uber. Crew clocking chips, opposite of you losers. Can't be broke as a joker, got no sense of humor. Just a young pack mover, shot to my consumer. Jumping out the foreign or I'm hopping out the Uber. Crew clocking chips, opposite of you losers. Can't be broke as a joker, got no sense of humor.
I'm a D-boy, need abusive as users. I'm a D-boy, need abusive as users. I'm a D-boy, need abusive as users. You know I'm the boy, get money's what I'm used to.
Keep you straight from the gate, so I don't confuse ya. I'm a D-boy, need abusive as users. I'ma make noise, shout to my producer. I'm an entertainer, but I ain't here to amuse ya. Yeah, fuck with shooters and they all fucking users. Come through, wake that ass up like a rooster, hella early in the morning. Early bird gets a worm. Finna get rich for 'em, food for the worms. Cutting cocaine, dropping whole things. It's a cold game, make you run your gold chain. Hungry, but I'm moving in a keto state. For sure, I beat the price on the keys in your state. Catch me running up a tab, fucking up a bag. Make me wonder how long will a good thing last. On my Curtis Mayfield, live a life I can't chill. Push a man, pushing packs, all I do is make squeal. Keep it 100, I'm just numb, yo, I can't feel none of these suckers when they say they real. Stacking Uber cash, I'm an out-of-state supply. Random Uber man, he'll get away drive. Just a young pack mover, shot to my consumer. Jumping out the foreign or I'm hopping out the Uber. Crew clocking chips, opposite of you losers. Can't be broke as a joker, got no sense of humor. Just a young pack mover, shot to my consumer. Jumping out the...
What is up, my people? It's been a while, but we're back for the Dynasty Show on Tuesday night, and today we'll be talking about who is the RB1 in Dynasty. But before we do that, obviously we're chilling for a bit, answering all questions. Hammer, what's up, Hammer?
What's up, man? Happy holidays to everybody. Happy New Year as well.
Yes.
I feel like as I've gotten older, the New Year is just another day you wake up and you're like, all right, same shit, different day. But Happy New Year out there to everybody. Want to give a quick shout out to One Smith, who won our home Dynasty or subscriber Dynasty League championship, I should say. So shout out to One Smith if you're out there. Also shout out to TD Howe for making the championship as well. It was a hell of a season, and really had some fun with this thing. I'm really excited to see what happens in the off season, and then what happens in the draft, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, shout out to everybody in the subscriber league, in the subscriber Dynasty League. We will be doing a second subscriber Dynasty League as well. So if you're interested, I think we have one spot left, I believe, one or two. So
yeah, we might have
if you're
two spots left, yeah.
So if anybody out there is interested, hit us up and we'll see if we can get you guys in there. But yeah, another quick note, really quick, before I hand it off to you. Go Pack Go.
We're not here for that. All right.
Oh yeah, we are.
We're not.
Oh
here
yeah,
for
we
that.
are. We're here for that, baby. Let's go.
You forgot to shout out to me for losing in the semifinals.
That doesn't see. This is.
Yeah, I lost in the semis in the sub league. That sucked. But yeah, shout out to One Smith Wonder for winning the first season of the Dynasty Life OG subscriber league.
Yeah, buddy.
Absolutely. But yeah, what is up, everybody out there? Happy holidays, as Hammer said, and hopefully y'all have won some ships. Hopefully we've helped win some ships. So let us know out there, how your seasons went. You guys taking ships home or what? I myself wind up taking home one Dynasty ship, which is like a few people from Instagram, a couple pages on Instagram, and then I wound up winning the Wafers number 3 league, actually, which was one of Huss's leagues.
Nice.
And then I lost in the number 7 to actually shout out to Dennis, fellow Viking fan, lost to Dennis in the ship. God. So good matchup there, but. All right, guys, what is up? Song in the building. What up, Song? Song coming right out the gate. Gibbs. Listen,
Song, I love it.
It's a real conversation, and we'll get into it. And, for sure, support on Facebook as well. Daniel, what up, Daniel? How are you, brother? Daniel, always one of the first ones in here. Shout out to Daniel. Kevin, Dynasty season just begun. Yes, it has, Kevin. Yes.
You know what's interesting?
What's interesting about that's what makes it so lovely.
So what's funny about that is when we first started, so we had a home league, Bagala started it, and we were all pretty excited for it. And it was such a shift in our perspective from redraft, and then you just have to have that mindset all year round. You're following the incoming rookies, you're watching I'm not watching the combine, but I know Steve is watching the combine. It turns you into a 24/7 GM. It really does. So I've started to really see how much it is all year round thing, which makes it fun, obviously. And then we have those milestones, right? Like the draft, all that good stuff. So so there's some milestones to hit, but yeah, excited to see what happens in the future.
Absolutely. Should I try to trade Jameson in Dynasty? What's up, JC, fellow Packer fan over there for Hammer?
Yes, sir.
Should I try to trade Jameson in Dynasty while his value is increasing after 3 straight decent weeks? Yeah, I mean,
I would.
Absolutely. Now is the chance, because for a while, right, nobody wanted him. Nobody would touch him. I have him on 2 of my Dynasty squads. I can't sell him for anything. So, now that we're here in the offseason, I'll be trying to sell him while his value is high. Now, it could play out a multiple, different ways, but do you want to bet on Jameson, right? Do you want to bet that his value increases even more next season into the season? Is he more involved? Is he actually getting more work? Is that value going to increase, or do you move off of now, while you have the chance to? You can minimize that risk and take, you might take 70 cents on the dollar, but you're getting something, and you're getting something out of it. And with the draft coming up, I'm sure there's, some picks maybe that you can get. Somebody might like Jameson. Maybe you throw him, with a pick. You do some kind of package deal for something. But yeah, I'd absolutely be trying to shop around Jameson. But what do you think, Hammer? What are you doing with JMO?
Yeah, I'd be selling as well. I was actually trying to buy JMO last offseason about a year ago because I felt like his value was, all the way in the tank for the most part. He didn't play a ton his rookie year. I think he played one game maybe. And then he had the offseason drama with the gambling stuff. So I was actually trying to buy fairly low. I think I tried to get a JMO for a third round or something like that. It didn't end up happening, but yeah, I would definitely. And I feel like we've had a bunch of JMO questions the last couple of shows because he's had those kind of, productive games where it's like, damn, should I get something out of him while I can? And I made the comp to Gabe Davis, where it's like, if you play him, you have to play him every week and just live with the boom or bust stuff. And is his value ever going to be as high as it is at this point? It could be, but what are the chances? I think there's a greater chance that his value decreases than increases. I guess that's the best way to put it. So take advantage of the value, shop them around, right? It's the off season now. So, nobody else is scoring points. So shop them around and see what the best offer you could get.
For sure. Will, what's up, Will? Dynasty Keeper QB question. Love or Richardson, 4-point per TD league. Ran a poll on Fantasy Life and got 72% saying A-Rich on 97 votes. I own Hurts, Burrow, and Love right now. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing this is super flex, right? Even if it's not, I mean, 4-point per passing touchdown definitely makes you want to lean more towards A-Rich in that situation. Even if it wasn't, I think I'd be leaning A-Rich situation for sure. Whether you use him or not, or wind up, trading him just because of the upside he has. I mean, in his healthy games, I mean, the games he's played full,
he was a beast. He was an absolute beast.
Yep. Quarterback, like
he was a beast.
So he's got to obviously take care of himself and try not to get injured. But yeah, I'm taking A-Rich here. What do you think, Hammer?
I'm taking A-Rich as well, and it might surprise you, but just because of the stability, right? I know Jordan Love has played exceptionally well this year from a totality standpoint. He's had his roller coasters. He's been on a little bit of a roller coaster. He's, trending up right now, but Jordan Love is only guaranteed next year. Now, do I think they'll extend him? Probably, but you have Anthony Richardson, who's extremely dynamic. The one issue, and I said this before the season started, that I had with Anthony Richardson is his style of play lends itself to being hurt. Like that's my big concern with Anthony Richardson. And that came to fruition this particular season. I think he played four games ish, something like that, 4 or 5 games. So that scares me. But just from a overall, I know this guy's going to be there for 4 years. I can almost guarantee he's going to get the 5th year option. So, you have at least another 4 years of Anthony Richardson, whereas Jordan Love's situation is a little bit up in the air contract wise. So yeah, and the rushing upside is just ridiculous. That Colts team is pretty good anyway. So you feel really good about those prospects, Josh Downs, he's got good weapons on that team. So yeah, I'd go A-Rich for sure. He just has higher upside.
Yeah.
At this point.
Smokey the Cat. What up, Smokey? What's good? Peacock in the building. What's goody, Peacock? Kevin, yeah, missed you too, my dog. Yeah, 1 dynasty and 1 redraft I won.
It was such a sad season for me, Kev. I had 2 opportunities to win an in on week 14 or whatever it was. Yeah, week 14. I had 2 opportunities for winning in. Couldn't cash either one of those in. So yeah, I sat this one out on the playoffs, but hopefully next year will be a different story.
Yeah, I mean, I wound up with the 1 ship in redraft. I only did 5 redrafts this year. I did almost like 10 last year, but I just like Dynasty too much. So I'm just increasing Dynasty and lessening my redraft. But wind up in the semifinals in 2 of the redrafts. Lost 1 in the first round, but had a good season redraft wise, I would say. So 2 out of 5, basically, I had chances in the ship. I'll take that.
Nice.
Because you never know what can happen, right? I mean, Joe Burrow screwed me in multiple leagues, with the injury early on, the injury after. I mean, everybody had injuries, but like I got hit like early with some, and it just
I know that
sometimes
feeling.
Sometimes there's nothing you could do. But I the 2 leagues that I missed the 1 league I missed the playoffs in, my 1 out of 5 redrafts, I missed it. I missed by 1 game. 1 game. and you know, that was a 2-quarterback one, so losing Burrow was fucking big there. But got the one dynasty ship. I was happy to get that one, but my receivers are just insane in that league. I ran through that. Sam, what up, Sam? What's good, Sam? JC said he'd be interested in the subscriber league. Yeah, appreciate you, JC. Check out our Instagram, Dynasty Life Fantasy, which should be on the bottom left corner here, if you can see that. But yeah, hit me up on Instagram in the DMs, and I'll send you the link. Anyone else as well? Bogey in the building. What up, Bogey?
Bogey, what's happening, bro?
Oh man, JC, listen.
JC, see, that's what I'm talking about, dog. It doesn't get enough pub or talk, but the Packers are playing well, and I'm excited. JC, my man.
Kev, what's the buy-in? It's 200 up front. It's 100 a season. We take the first 2 seasons up front. Everything is done through League Safe, so everyone can feel comfortable about it.
Yep.
Close out the year, taking down 4 or 5 ships. I made nice, Bogey.
Nice.
Good shit. Will's got 8 ships in the bag. Awesome, Will. You seem up like a portfolio guy. I like that.
I don't know why that's funny. A portfolio guy. I don't know why that's funny to me.
Because it's like a Diaz. It's a Diaz thing. Shout out to Diaz with the portfolio stuff. But yeah, when you're playing in, you know, a ton of leagues, it's more of like a portfolio where, you know, you take chances. And I said this in one of actually the group chats where, you know, being in as many dynasty leagues as I am, and it makes me pull triggers a lot more often than I would. Like if you only had 1 or 2, you know, if you're only in a few dynasty leagues,
you want your guys.
And you want your guys, and you're almost like afraid to be wrong in certain situations. You know what I mean? Rather than just, you know, playing the strategy, just do what you do, have your process, and just, you know, just kind of follow that. Sam said he's more happy with his team. I just know I went wrong with not trying to grab Puka or Kyron off waivers. That's okay. I proceeded to trade Rashad White week 1 as well. Yeah.
That's a tough one.
That's all right, though. When we make mistakes, you know, we always especially in Dynasty, it's what happens after, right? What do you do after? How can you overcome it? How can you battle back? You know, so, you know, whoever spent first on Sam Howell, I mean, we didn't necessarily tell y'all to do that. We told y'all there was a ton of risk in that.
And before we continued down the Sam Howell train, we took some flack on Sam Howell on our last show, and we're not saying we don't like Sam Howell. We're just saying the situation is what it is. You know what I mean? So it turned out to be like there's situations where quarterbacks, like the Russell Wilson situation, right now, I'm sure Russell Wilson will get a opportunity, and it's a different scenario. But like things happen, especially to guys that aren't high draft picks, and that team has a high draft pick this upcoming offseason. So you just read the tea leaves, and I think that's where we were going with that.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, at the time, we even had said like it felt like Howell was safe because he was actually playing well at the time, and
they were okay. Yeah,
we figured they'd have like not a top 10 pick, and then he proceeded to just literally shit the bed. But that was one of the things about it was there's a chance like if they get close enough high pick to get a quarterback, they can absolutely do that. Being that the whole coaching staff and all that was most likely going to change too. So,
yep.
And now they've got the second pick. They're pretty much guaranteed
2-3
Caleb or Drake. So, and then you've got Fields' chance in Chicago. You heard that? Chan for Fields. Yep. So do they just go Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 1? Or do they maybe trade back and try and pick up some extra assets? So
which I can see that being the case. Yeah,
I can, but Marvin Harrison, I mean, that's
and DJ Moore. I was actually talking to Bagala about that, and I was like, that's a real quandary if you're the Chicago Bears, right? Do you trade the number 1 pick? Do you trade Justin Fields and reset your quarterback market so you don't have to pay a quarterback a ton of money? Do you make the pick and keep there's a lot of different things that the Chicago Bears could do, but they gotta get it right. You know what I mean? They have to get it right because this is the opportunity to make their franchise better. And the division's not that great, right? Green Bay's a 500-ish team. Minnesota's a 500-ish team. Obviously the Lions are really good, but there's an opportunity to really make your team much better. And I think this is a really defining offseason for the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I mean, they could. I mean, Neighbors is probably going to go in the top 10-ish, at least.
They could trade down. They could trade down and get him. Yeah.
If they do trade down, maybe they say, "Fuck it, we'll pick up the second guy, and we'll take somebody else." At the top. So, there's multiple different routes that they can go. So,
absolutely.
Mr. Bakes, Mr. Bakes was good, homie. Kev said it's the goal to have Dynasty content weekly on Tuesdays. Yes, we always have Dynasty Show here on Tuesdays at 10 Eastern, thanks to Hudson Bogey from the 420 crew. So we are, we're here Tuesday nights at 10 p.m. We'll do all our live shows here. And I'm not sure what we're going to do. I got to talk with Hammer. We'll see what we want to do for, if we want to continue Saturdays. I might do where maybe me and Hammer just record content and then post it. That might be a little bit better, just with time and all that kind of other stuff. So, but you'll definitely see us at least once a week, Tuesday nights live. Otherwise, you'll be getting, some videos weekly that we'll do as well. Will said, by the way, guys, Watson did not get picked up after I dropped him for Jamison. Okay.
How about that? I remember this. I remember this. Yeah, this is the thing. Good shit.
Got Jamo last off season for a 3 last year and a 4 this year. Wow, that's even cheap. Denver cuts Wilson after the season. Where's a good fit for him?
There's a couple of good spots. I think Atlanta comes to mind as the best spot at this point. And I know, obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Atlanta, etc. New England would be stupid. Like, that just wouldn't be good. Washington, no, they're not going to take on a high-priced quarterback at this point.
Yeah, they got a top pick, yeah. Raiders could be interesting.
Raiders would be very interesting. Stays in the division. That would be crazy. So, yeah, I think Atlanta has to be the top choice at this point.
I heard rumblings of Minnesota. I don't know how true that is, but I would just guess if we're going to pay that money, we might as well pay Kirk to come back than, then take Russ. So, but yeah, Atlanta would be kind of my best guess.
What's wild about the whole Russ situation is he was having a pretty good season. Like, he wasn't Sam Howell where he just fell off the rails. Like, even when they got off to that terrible start, he wasn't playing terribly like he was last year. So this was doomed from the beginning. Sean Payton never wanted Russell Wilson, and they basically set him up for failure. Did you see the report that they told Russell Wilson 2 months ago that they were done with him?
Yep, and then they go on a fucking run.
Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Well, they told him he had to restructure his contract.
Right.
They were going to bench him, and then like the Players Association apparently got involved. I don't know. It was a whole fucking.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was a whole thing. Yeah, that was crazy because Russ was actually not playing that bad. I guess tutty wise. I mean, he wasn't really throwing for much yards, but. I don't know. Can we blame that on the receivers? I mean, Jerry Jeudy, Sutton's just catching bombs, but he's not necessarily a.
I mean, listen, at the beginning of the season, if I told you Russell Wilson was going to be quarterback 12, you would have signed up for that.
Oh, fuck. Hell yeah.
I
did sign
quarterback
up for
12
in one league.
You know what I mean? It's not that bad. And that he's still quarterback 12. He didn't even play last week.
Mm-hmm.
So. He was in the top 10, 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions. Pretty good on the ground as well. 80 carries for 300 yards, 340, and another 3 touchdowns. So Russell Wilson was pretty good, pretty good. So very interesting tack they're taking with him in Denver. And, you could kind of pretty much kiss that Denver experiment goodbye.
Yeah, man. Packers are planning on extending Loves in the offseason, 5 to 6 years from 140 to 170. Woof.
I didn't see that. I didn't see anything. And I follow a lot of Packer stuff. I actually on ESPN, on the ESPN app, I actually get the Milwaukee app. So I listen to a lot of that on Mondays and Tuesdays because they do talk a lot of Packers, obviously. So I can, have some additional information. So I haven't heard anything, but that would be really exciting. And his stock would go, up if he was locked in for another 4 to 5 years with that team. And I think they will do that, but I think we want to see it first, right? Until we actually see it, then we're still in this wait and see kind of mode. So that would excite me. And hopefully they make a playoff push. So,
but do they need to do that yet?
No, because they have him on the extension, but I think they would do it out of good faith and saying, hey, you're our guy, et cetera, et cetera. So they don't need to do it because they already signed him to the 1-year extension for next year, which was smart business on the Packers' part because it only cost them like $10 million with a 5th-year option, which I think 15, 20, something around that. So the Packers, are just doing good business at this point.
Said Bazaraski mentioned it in a recent YouTube video. All right.
Yeah, that would excite me.
DS said he won. DS said he went 4-3 in his ships. Good year for your boy. Gave my mom and my girl some dough. Okay, taking care of his ladies. I got you, DS. Then paid off his student loan. Nice. That's a win. T-Law got me. That dude is just one pick. Danny Jones.
That is a dub.
Yeah, T-Law.
I think T-Law got a lot of people too, especially in Superflex.
T-Law wasn't great this year, especially since he was pushed all the way up and taken as a QB1, for people's QB1s in leagues. Like that was, that's the tough part about it. But does he bounce back? He's a young guy. I mean, he's there. He ain't losing the job. So
still QB 14, but we expected him to be like QB 7 or 8, right? And that's a big deal. And he's given you basically mid-range QB all season. He's only been a top 10 QB on a per week basis 4 weeks. He did have a good 3-week stretch in the middle there, but if you're drafting somebody in the first round of your super flex leagues and he's only giving you 4 top 10 weeks at the position, that's a problem.
For sure. Julian, what up, Julian? What's good, bro? Jahan Dotson feels like a roster clogger. So does Judy. What do I do with them?
I wouldn't consider those guys roster cloggers per se, because I think we've seen some flashes where there's value there. Like there's legitimate value. I think there's a little bit more value in Dotson than Judy, but they're kind of in similar positions where we're not quite sure what they are. Their situation at the quarterback. Obviously, we don't know who the quarterback for Denver is going to be next year, and we don't know who the quarterback for the Commanders is going to be next year. So I wouldn't categorize them as roster cloggers. I'd categorize them as kind of like guys that have some value, but their stock is down. Like I could feel confident in saying their stock is down. But those are guys I would, hold on to, or if the right deal comes along and you can add one of these pieces to a deal, then that's kind of how I would utilize those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like you said, at this point, the value is kind of down. So can't really sell them for much. Nobody's really buying them, or nobody wants to pay really anything for them. So at this point, you kind of just have to hold them and then hope the situation changes, right? Like you said, who's the QB going to be in Denver? Who's the QB going to be in Washington? I mean, if they're taking Caleb, or Drake May, like Dotson becomes a lot more intriguing, right? At that point, Terry's getting a little bit older, and Dotson is a good route runner. Like he gets open, so he is a guy that particularly has some skills, but he'll always be kind of stuck behind Terry McLaurin. But can he get himself back up into that top, 25-ish range?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
As far as his value, and then from there, obviously, you can try and trade him. But as soon as the situation changes, I think his value is going to change. So, you might be able to capitalize on that. Judy's going to be same kind of situation where we don't know what the QB situation is going to be like. But I'm a little more done with Judy at this point. But somebody out there is going to like him. Somebody out there is going to like that situation is going to change. So you just have to hold him because you're not going to get what you want to get from him at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Diaz said he won the Empire League. Let's go, Diaz. So we made some of those trades and have the 102, 104, 3 seconds. Okay. Need to decide if I'm advocate the throne or go for the Empire pot.
I'm going for the gusto. Listen, if you're in that position, just go for it. Right? There's no reason to take your foot off the gas here. Go for it, take it down, and then let the chips fall. Because who knows
Yeah.
if you have that opportunity to do it again.
And I think that if I remember, like, some of your roster, you have some older guys. Like, I think Keenan Allen was on there. Like, so you want to just try and take advantage of maybe one last, big season that could kind of take you all the way. So, yeah, for sure. I think I'd be trying to just go for it. Because if you're just going to advocate it, then, like, why'd you even make the trades that you made? You know what I mean? Like, I know we lost the first in there somewhere. So, yeah, I would just be going for it, Diaz. Bogey said they were all dynasty leagues. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Got to shout y'all out. iTunes burn all season long and made a difference for me. There you go.
That's what we do.
Appreciate you, Bogey. Nah, Debo loved this. No, Debo loved this all season. What are we thinking recently? I was able to get him for Jahan Dotson and a third mid-season on the squad. That's a fucking nice steal, especially after how Debo's finishing up here.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that we are down on Debo as far as dynasty wise is just because there's so many guys in that offense. And listen, he's played really well. Wide receiver 14 currently in full PPR. He's played really well, but he's a little bit older, right? 27 years old now. So, and I felt like he hit that ceiling season a couple of years ago in 2021, and he was being a bit overvalued in terms of this do-it-all kind of guy. And obviously when they got Christian McCaffrey, that limited his ceiling, right? Rushing wise. Now he's gotten some good rushing this year. He's got only 36 attempts, but he's got 5 rushing touchdowns. So that's kind of boosted his value. So Debo's awesome. And, he's going to have anybody on that offense outside of Christian McCaffrey. There's going to be hit and miss weeks, right? Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, those guys are going to have hit or miss weeks. McCaffrey's really the guy that offense centers around.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you won the trade basically as of now, as far as what the value is concerned. And Debo's having a good season, and people really do like Debo. So can you now move off of him while he's valued high again, right? And get one of the top guys that we want to get? Can you get into the top 10, of dynasty wide receivers? Can you get into the top 5 with Debo plus? Like, depending what you got on your squad, for sure, I would be looking to move them. Anybody that's gaining value like that, I'm trying to just tier up. Russell and Atlanta would make sense. His wife's from there. Oh, shit. Okay. That's right. Sierra. Shit, the Commanders started 2-0. Sam Howell was top of the stats for a good chunk of the season here. Not surprising in hindsight, but anything could have happened. No, for sure. And, one of the things that we brought up was, why he was getting so much passing yards, right? Why they were throwing the ball so much. And then, like, Terry wasn't doing nothing. Dotson wasn't doing nothing. And in Dynasty, like, it's hard when you spend a first or you spend something valuable to go and get one of these guys that, like, we don't know for sure if they're going to be safe. Could they possibly be safe for one more season? Yeah. But of course, anything can happen. And, I think you had said it, like, unless Howell shits the bed for the rest of the season, then
I did.
He should be safe. And I agree. He should have been safe if he finished how he was playing the whole season. But that did not happen. He wound up shitting the bed down the stretch, and now they have a top pick. And, as we said, if they have a top pick, very, very high chance they're going to wind up drafting somebody, especially with
a regime change,
new coaching that's coming in with the regime change, for sure. So that was always a possibility. And Commanders fans hated that. Everybody loved them some Sam Howell, but I think now we see, why you don't. And I think, like, Brock Purdy was almost an example of why, like, everybody loves Sam Howell. A late round pick, a guy that got a chance and started playing really well. So everybody's like, this is why we say, like, the draft capital is so important. These guys don't get a lot of chances. If you fuck up,
they have a short leash.
Look at Trevor Lawrence. He played like trash his first season, right? Played kind of trashy again this season, but he gets a pass because he's a first-round pick, and he's still going to be there no matter what.
I bring this up all the time. Baker Mayfield is the best example of a guy just getting just so many. Zach Wilson, right? Zach Wilson,
Sam Darnold. I mean, these guys get chance after chance to try and be quarterback somewhere.
And then if you're a guy like Josh Dobbs, right? He came in, he played well with Arizona, he played well with the Vikings, shit the bed a couple of times, done. So the draft capital matters. Like it really does. And I think the
coaching, right? The regime,
yeah, for
right?
sure.
We talk about
For
that as
sure.
well.
And I think with Brock Purdy, it's a little bit different because that team is so good, like
Oh, for
around him.
sure.
And I'm
For
not
sure.
saying that he's not good, but I'm just saying all those parts when you have McCaffrey, you got like Kittle, Debo, Ayuk, you got Trent Williams at left tackle. That defense is really good. So I'm not saying anybody could go in there and do that, but if you put Sam Howell on the 49ers, they'd still be pretty good.
Oh, no, for sure. But Sam Howell's not on the 49ers.
And that's the point.
And the difference is Brock came in, played well, and didn't really not play well. Like he played well
just right away.
Every game right away. Where
if you remember,
Howell couldn't continuously do that.
But if you remember when Brock Purdy had that 3-game losing streak.
Oh, this season, yeah, I'm talking about. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm just saying it just as a principle kind of thing. Now, I never thought Brock Purdy's job was in jeopardy from an organizational standpoint, but you start to hear those rumblings, right? And like you said, with a guy like Trevor Lawrence, he played terrible his rookie year. That you kind of excuse that, but he's played like garbage this season for a guy that's been drafted and looked at as a franchise quarterback. But Trevor Lawrence is safe. He's not going anywhere. So it's a difference. It matters.
Yeah, for sure. DS made the mistake of paying the 112 for Howell. All 6 of his QBs were benched and died. Traded for Flacco for a third. Flipped the ship for Mullins and a 4th. That's right. And then Mullins got benched.
Man,
you wound up throwing back in, but I mean,
with Flacco.
You spend the late first. It happens to be the 112 now, so I mean, it's not as bad, but it still hurts. It still hurts for sure. Harrison and Moore will be sick for Fields. Absolutely.
That's such a quandary for the Bears, man. That is such a quandary for what the Bears are going to do, because the Bears would have to pay Justin Fields. Like Justin Fields is going to have to get a contract at some point. And if you decide like this is the turning point of that franchise, like I said, because if you decide to draft a receiver or trade down and draft neighbors and whatever, now you're going to have to pay Justin Fields at some point, right? So are you going to take the quarterback? I'm very interested to see this draft. This should be a really good draft.
Crispy down here said Tom Brady 6, Dak 4th. Yeah, absolutely. There are some of those guys, but those are like
Russell Wilson,
almost Russell Wilson for sure. Those are some of those outlier guys. There's going to be guys like that, but the majority are not. The majority are highly drafted guys. So, you can take chances on those guys, of course, but when you swing and miss, like it hurts in Superflex. If you're if you've got to pay up to go and get somebody. And this guy was a top 5 quarterback at one point this season, Sam Howell, right? Fantasy wise.
Yeah. Yep. But if you remember, and to Crispy's point, Tom Brady being a 6th-round pick, like he came in and had a great defense. He never really had to carry the load for that team. They won Super Bowls, etc. And then for Dak came into a loaded team, right? They had a young Zeke Elliott, the best offensive line in football for like 5 years in a row. They had Dez Bryant. They had Jason Witten was still there. So that team was good enough where Dak didn't have to be Patrick Mahomes in his rookie year. You know what I mean? So there was no real slip off where he was forced to do a lot of that. And they were winning games, like those guys, like Russell Wilson, right? His first year when he was with Seattle, they were winning games. They had the Legion of Boom. So, if Sam Howell had the Legion of Boom and he was, 11-5 right now, he'd be fine.
Yeah. I mean, listen, guys, even Mark Sanchez took the Jets to the fucking AFC
championship game. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Mark Sanchez was bad.
Diaz said that he traded Deshaun in the 1st. I remember that, to get Fields and the 212 back, and you won the ship. So yeah, I'm glad that you wound up winning the ship, especially after making some of those moves, because obviously it was risky. But
Jay, what's up, Jay?
Jay, what up, Jay? Appreciate you. JC said, as a Packer fan, hoping Chicago takes a QB. Using the picks to build around Fields. Yeah,
it's gonna be interesting.
Isaac, what up, Isaac? What's goody?
Oh, man, Isaac.
Bogey says he can see them paying Love a big extension. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense for them to sign him. It really does. Like it just makes sense, right? From a salary cap standpoint. and you have that young team. You've already seen the fruits of that labor bearing bearing right now with them having an opportunity to make the playoffs. Jaden Reed is an absolute stud. He's amazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dontavian Wicks is pretty good. I know he was out. Bro, they lose Luke Musgrave and Tucker Kraft is really good. Like, he's solid. You know what
He
I'm
was solid. Yeah, that's why we were like, oh, which one is going to be the guy? Because Musgrave and Kraft are both solid tight ends.
Right.
Like,
very solid, right? And we didn't even mention Dubes and Watson. So and a guy, Bo Melton, came out of nowhere and had 100 yards. Like, what? So I'm liking what I'm seeing, but I would like to see Jordan Love continue to grow with this. They have the youngest offense in the league, skill wise. So.
So I mean, he's got an arm. He can sling it. I mean, I give him that. He can for sure sling it. So
yes, he can.
And listen, Jaden Reed. I mean, all off season,
you were on it.
You were on it. I was talking about, well, he can be the wide receiver one there. Like, I know it might sound crazy, but like, scoop him up in that second round of your rookie drafts, because he's just a route running wide receiver. And
it's exactly what I did in the home league.
And it just goes to show you with Watson out, like, Reed is shining, and even with Watson in there now, it's like
they use him in a multitude of ways. Yeah,
and Watson lost a lot of dynasty value this season.
Yeah, he did.
Interesting to see with the Jones contract, Dillon free agent. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I think for the Packers, it's going to be really tough, because Aaron Jones missed so much time this season, like so much time. I think it might be time to move on. So, but running backs are interchangeable. I love me some Aaron Jones. I think he's fantastic for that team. But yeah, they'll probably turn over that backfield pretty soon.
Yeah. Julian said he's rostering way more tight ends than I want. Yeah, so you got to get rid of them. It's not a tight end premium for sure. You have Andrews, Pitts, Meyer, Kraft, Dolchich. I try to pair them with other players to tier up which tight ends to keep. Yeah, I mean, listen, you're keeping Andrews and Pitts, or you can keep Meyer if you want, and trade everything else. You're just trading everything else. You only need 2 guys, maximum, and you need to trade everyone else. I mean, take 2 of them and that's it. For me, I would hold the guy that probably has the most upside, because you got Andrews. That's pretty much your main guy right now. Who's next up that you think has the most upside? Is it Pitts? Is it Mayer? Or what is your league feel, right? Can Pitts be a hot commodity later on, or can Mayer be a hot commodity later on where you can trade that guy? Then you're picking up somebody on waivers. You have Andrews. That's all you need, really. So.
Right. And listen, if Russ goes to Atlanta, Pitts' stock goes way up.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would
might be able to sell at that point.
If you can trade Dolchich for something, then yeah, I mean, I don't care. I'll take a 4th if I can. I mean, Kraft, same thing. If you can get anything for them, otherwise you can just drop them. I mean, they're just wasting your roster spots. And then you should be able to trade Mayer. I would think you should be able to definitely get something for him. So maybe you use him and something else to tier up at wide receiver, or maybe you get a running back or something like that. So for sure, for me, it's Andrews and Pitts. I'm trading everybody else.
I'll be honest with you. Even I would be open to trading Pitts if it's going to help me tier up at wide receiver. Like, especially, like I said, if Russ ends up in Atlanta, the Pitts value is going to go way up. People are going to buy him. You'll be able to tier up. So that could be a good situation for you.
No, I agree with you 100%, but I'm not saying to hold Pitts to actually hold him. I want to hold him because I think out of the guys on the bench, he's got the most upside and the most chance to really, give you the most in return value if he reaches his potential, or even if, like you said, the QB switch happens where now you can move Pitts. Then you just pick up, some kind of backup, any tight end that you can, to play when Andrews is not playing or is on bye. But then you just have Andrews and you're just playing Andrews. So for sure.
Yep.
I think that's what we're doing there, Julian. Bogey said he feels like Debo and AJ Brown are in the same category. In Dynasty, I can't get on board with that, but
yeah, I think AJ Brown is just a tier above Debo Samuel. I think but Debo Samuel is very strange to me. Like, his upside is ridiculously high. It really is. Sure. But the injury history, like, he gets banged up from his style of play. He's a physical receiver. They run him a little bit between the tackles. So I definitely would have AJ Brown over Deebo Samuel.
But I mean, even if you don't, like, that's okay. I mean, but if other people are feeling the same way, like about Deebo, that he's valued like kind of that particularly high, what else can you give up to go get, one of the JJ's, Chases, CDs, Amon-Ra's, Garrett Wilson, what else do you have to give up to get one of those guys? A lot of age on that roster. I remember that one. Yeah, I remember. Only trade for futures. I feel you. Will said his best deal was trading Kyler, Rondell Moore, and James Cook for JJ and Jordan Love. Oh, yeah, nice. Love won me the Dynasty ship. Now I could potentially turn him into A-Rich. Yeah, that's good, man.
Not bad.
That's awesome. It's a good trade. I wound up being able to get Chase in 2 leagues or 3 leagues. No, 2 leagues. I was able to get Chase in. One I already had him in. But yeah, he was available, especially after like Burrow went down. I mean,
you take advantage of that situation.
People really had him just available. So he matched Peyton Manning. Yeah, and Baker actually played really well early on.
Yeah, he did. No, but I think
injured, right?
Injuries like that, and then when they got the Odell, that kind of fell off the rails when Odell was there. So but the point is with Baker is that he got opportunities, right? He went to Carolina. Now he's in Tampa. Like, he's going to get opportunities, and not opportunities to back up per se, opportunities to start. Like, Carolina said, hey, here's a starting job. Tampa Bay, here's a starting job, because he was the first, not only a first round pick, a first overall pick. So I think that's the key there with Baker, and just that whole thought process in general is these high first round pick quarterbacks, or first round pick quarterbacks in general, are going to get multiple opportunities to be starting quarterbacks for the most part. There's some outliers, but
for sure. About 15 minutes or so, we're going to start talking about Dynasty RB1. We'll get into that discussion, so everybody can chime in on that, because we'd love to hear everybody else's thoughts on that as well. So I'll finish smoking this, and then we will get into this it's a real discussion on, who's the Dynasty RB1. So we'll get into that. In the meantime, we'll answer some more y'all questions. So throw them out there while we're taking all questions, guys. There was some promise for Baker. Switch to Stefanski. Yeah. Will, I'm with you on that. I almost made a video. So I was on this show with Just for the Birds podcast. Shout out to them. And we were talking about Dobbs and the video I made on Joshua Kelly. Remember how I made the video on Joshua Kelly and how not to play Joshua Kelly? They were like, yo, you should make a video on Dobbs. And I was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I should make a video on Dobbs. And I should also throw in there, his ass is getting benched because he tried to fucking kill the number one wide receiver in the fucking NFL. I never wound up making the video, but it was talked about.
That's funny.
Fucking guy tried to kill my boy, bro. You coming right out for that. Fuck out of here. He's just coming back from injury, and you try to fucking murder him. No. Cleveland, Peyton, and Chubb didn't give that a big contract. Just picked up the year option. Yeah. Isaac said Bears will trade the pick. Yeah, I think they are. I think that they might keep Fields. Do they trade the pick? I don't know. I mean, we talked about that a little bit earlier. Do they trade back a little bit? Or do they just take Marvin Harrison with the one, or do they wind up trading back? So they're trying to keep. I didn't see it, but I haven't even looked into it at this point. Taylor, what's up, Taylor? Team picks him up next season to start. Yeah, I think he's for sure going to get a starting job. There's teams out there that need quarterbacks, and there's teams out there that can't get some of the top quarterbacks. There's also in the draft, there's also teams out there that are kind of have good teams, and they're kind of a quarterback away, like the Atlanta Falcons that we are kind of we talked about earlier, like maybe the Raiders. Who knows if they want to Jacobs or not, but.
Yeah, very interesting.
especially for Russ. I think that, especially now that he can kind of choose.
Yep.
I would guess he would try and pick a team that has a chance to win. I don't think he's going to go to, I don't think he's going to pull a DeAndre Hopkins and say,
Go to the Titans.
I want to go to the Titans.
No, I don't see that either.
So who do we think wins the Super Bowl?
Oh, it's a good question. Well, I mean, listen, the two top clear teams are obviously Baltimore and San Francisco, right? And I don't think it's particularly close in either conference. Buffalo's interesting. Buffalo's getting really hot, and I think Buffalo, I don't want to say they don't have pressure, because I still think they do, because when you have Josh Allen, you're kind of expected to be a Super Bowl contender. But I think with the Baltimores, obviously with the top seed, with Kansas City still having Patrick Mahomes, like Miami being in the mix, right? I don't think there's as much of a spotlight on Buffalo. Don't sleep on Buffalo. I think they have a little bit, they don't feel probably as much pressure as they did in years past. So I think it will be Baltimore, but Buffalo's dangerous, right? They're playing really well. Buffalo's dangerous. But I'd still go with Baltimore, but my sleeper pick would be Buffalo. I can't believe I'm saying sleeper pick being Buffalo. And then for the NFC, like San Francisco, do I think Dallas will be able to go to San Francisco and win? No, I do not. Do I think Detroit will go to San Francisco and win? No, I do not. And then the NFC South, no, that doesn't count. The Rams are interesting in the NFC because they're familiar with San Francisco, right? So those divisional games in the playoffs are really crazy. So I think it'll be Baltimore and San Francisco, but keep an eye out for Buffalo and the Rams.
Yeah, I like Buffalo. Like you said, I mean, Kansas City is always, as long as you got Mahomes, you can have a shot. Baltimore, I mean, listen, they've been playing awesome this season
without Mark Andrews, which is wild.
I mean, the Eagles just haven't, I don't know. They just have no like identity. I think we talked about that earlier in the season. They can't really figure out like what to do. Like the offense just doesn't look like fluid. Like they make big plays and then they push everything, but I don't know.
DeAndre Swift has kind of slowed down in the running game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep. I mean, you're right. I mean, can Detroit or Dallas like go into San Fran and pull it out? Like,
I wouldn't put money on that.
Between San Fran and Philly, I mean, I do think the old Philly can still take them out.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens there. But, and then, yeah, I would say between Baltimore, Kansas City, and Buffalo in the AFC. I mean, Miami's got a shot, absolutely, but they've been shown to like against good teams, like kind of.
Yeah, Miami doesn't.
Like they play down to the competition sometimes too. They've been a little bit weird this season, so
they have had some injuries to their offensive skill guys. I know Mostert was out. Obviously, Waddle and Hill been battling some injuries, so I understand that. But even earlier in the season, when there were these big matchups, like they didn't really fare very well against good teams, and that makes you nervous, especially in the playoffs, right? If Miami has to go to Baltimore in mid-January, you feel good about that? No. If Miami has to go to Kansas City in mid-January, you feel good about that? No, I don't.
No, I mean, their defense has got to hold up. I mean, we know on offense they've got some electric guys that, one touch and, it could be a touchdown. So, but yeah, I think, Baltimore is up there. It just sucks they lost JK. Like, that really sucks. Do we think, I mean, Dalvin Cook just got released, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think that
we were talking about him as a roster.
Do you think that Baltimore could be a realistic spot for him now going into the playoffs?
Potentially, but we saw Justice Hill run wild.
We did.
So and they got Gus Bus and they got Justice Hill. Like, the fuck? They just churn out running backs. Like, it's crazy.
Reed cost me a championship hurting his puss.
Hey.
He scored points though.
bro, he scored like 25 points. He had 2
Yeah,
tutties.
he scored points, man. Diaz said he's tired of the Fields hate. When are we going to put it on the head coach and OC? These motherfuckers 2 years in a row in a town take 8 games to realize, oh, we should use play action RPOs. No, absolutely. I mean, listen, Chicago's always been a shit show back to the, Trubisky days. So
even before that.
Yeah, well, even before that too. So yeah, I mean, it's always been somewhat bad there. So
the problem with Chicago is the stability of the organization, right? From the GM to the head coach. There's always some turnover at that position. And listen, I don't hate Fields. I just don't like the situation he's in, right? I don't like the regime or the organization as a whole, right? They haven't really done him justice. But also too, it's weird where like at the end of seasons he starts to go crazy, and then you get hyped for next season, and then you're like and then it's like the first 8-10 games it's like a fucking shit show. So it kind of feels like they're on a little bit of a hamster wheel now. Picking up DJ Moore was fantastic, obviously, right? And then if they get a Marvin Harrison, you like that. That defense has gotten better over the last month and a half. So,
yeah,
who knows?
Should I buy low on Watson or kind of stay away with the injury history and the emergence of Reed Wicks and some other wide receivers? I mean,
I actually traded Christian Watson in our home league, and I was just getting sick of his shit. And I picked him up last year, and he ended up helping me go on a run to the championship, down the stretch when he had that really good run late last year. But bro, it just like he has 2 or 3 good games, and then the hamstring, like it's a problem. So yeah, I mean, if you want to buy low, it depends on what buy low is, right? If you're getting him for a third, yeah, then the value's worth it. But it really depends on what buy low actually means in this situation. I still think some people, see him as high upside, but it's going to be tough to kind of gauge because and I think the key is exactly what JC said, is the emergence of a guy like Reed Wicks, and it seems like whoever they put out there is out there making some plays. So, if Christian Watson doesn't get his shit together, could be tough sledding in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what's the price. I don't know if I'm actively buying him, or do I make some kind of other bigger trade and have him kind of like thrown in. It just depends on what you're gonna wind up spending for Watson. I don't currently really necessarily want to buy him, especially since the owner that has him probably does not want to give him up for cheap. So really depends on what you got to spend there. What do I think the Giants do in the draft besides fuck it up? Yeah, I don't know. What are they at? Like pick 5 or something?
Yeah, they're at exactly 5.
Yeah, they're pick 5. So they're sticking with
their
Danny
projection
Jones,
is an offensive tackle, and it's funny because Bagala is a resident Giant fan, and him and I get into it all the time. And I'm like, "Yo, what are the Giants going to do?" And he's like, "Yeah, they're going to fuck it up. They're going to take some offensive linemen, and it's going to be a shit show." So I don't know.
Yeah. Will said you can see JJ saying it may be a rocket science, but he ain't no fucking doctor throwing me hospital balls. Yeah, man. Diaz says Christian Watson reminds him of a kind of Debo. Just hold. He's young. You ain't getting shit for him. Not giving more than a random second. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I wouldn't give more than a random second. So the person that has him is most likely not going to want to give him up, for just some random second. So if he does, then I'll take him. But where was that? My comment showing up yet? I think I hit your comment, Will. Let me know if I didn't.
He switched over to Twitch. I think that's why.
Oh, you have to be subbed to not get commercials, Crispy said. I think he gifted him a sub. Appreciate you, Crispy. The Bears did get into the playoffs with Trubisky, and if it wasn't for a triple doink from the kicker, he would have won a playoff game. That is true.
That defense was really good, though, when Trubisky was there.
Bryce Ford Wheaton for New York. Yeah, he was on the practice squad. I had put him on one of my taxi squad post that I had made on Instagram. He's also in one of the videos I made in the off season to, one of those taxi guys that really nobody knows about. He's considered a discount DK Metcalf type, big wide receiver, but hasn't done anything yet. So he's a guy that you can kind of just hold on the taxi for now. But yeah, it's possible he can emerge. I mean, he hasn't yet, so chances are very low. But a guy that you're holding on the taxi that you don't have to get rid of right now, I mean, doesn't cost you anything to hold. That's what the taxi's for, right? So
yep,
you can hold him on the taxi, then just hold him. Unless there's other guys you can hold on the taxi. Like, I'd rather hold running backs on the taxi, but that's good. Quick thoughts on Jerome Ford dynasty value. I mean, he goes right back behind Chubb, right?
Yep.
I mean, Chubb will be back. So does he have some kind of role next year? I would guess probably, maybe, especially Chubb coming back from an injury like that. Maybe he does have a role. Is it going to be valuable enough to play him in any particular week? That I don't know. I mean, maybe an RB2-ish flex type, but he has
really good value if you can give him to the Chubb owner, right? So he'll be super valuable to the Chubb owner. So if you do have Jerome Ford and you want to come off of Jerome Ford at some good value, like, now might be the time to do it, where you go to the Nick Chubb owner and say, hey, Nick Chubb might, they might work him back slow. We've seen a ton of these guys come off the ACL injuries and not really get it going till maybe week 6, week 8. They get started slow. So I think the best route, or to be able to get maximum value for Jerome Ford, is you go to the Chubb owner and try and work out a deal.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably worth a second-ish, I guess, right now, maybe a third. I mean, he's a guy that is kind of in the same position as before, where he's back up to Nick Chubb, but a little bit better situation where Chubb's coming off injury, like you said, could be of value in the first few weeks, until Chubb gets going, or he could just carve himself out an actual kind of role, maybe. I don't know. Is he going to be playable? We don't know. So as of right now, like, after the season is over, his value is probably not much until next season comes again, because now we're not playing any games.
Like training camp.
Most people don't give a shit about those guys now, so it really just it really depends, because a lot more people now are starting to stash running backs and starting to see that value of finding those Jerome Fords, Chuba Hubbards, Zach Mosses, Kyron Williams. Chubb's injury did look real bad, but it actually wasn't as bad as we thought. Huss in the building. What up, Huss? But yeah, he didn't tear up everything, actually, Isaac. He actually didn't. I don't know exactly what it is, so I can't really tell you. But what I do know is that it is not as bad as we thought it was. We thought he tore everything, and he actually didn't.
It initially looked like a potential career. So he's already without crutches or a brace. That was the last update 2 weeks ago. So he's not. He had a second surgery, though, back in September. His left knee. He had a second successful surgery. But I mean, listen, he did get hurt very early in the season, and I never would say, a guy getting hurt is good, but that is a bright spot, is that he did get hurt very early in the season in September. So the likelihood of him, coming back, relatively early next season is pretty high. But like I said, we've seen the Breece Halls, we've seen the Saquon Barkleys, we've seen these guys where these are primetime running backs and they don't get rushed back right away, right? They're on a little bit of a pitch count, they're on a snap count, a carry count, etc. So that's why I do think Jerome Ford could be, fairly valuable for the first month or so while Nick Chubb works his way back.
For real. Bogey said no. Yeah, I mean, but these young guys, it's a little bit different now. I mean, we just saw Breece Hall finish with a great season. And yeah, he doesn't look the same at times, but for sure. I don't think I'm thinking Nick Chubb is going to be like a top 5 running back-ish next year, but he should finish probably most likely top 10 if he plays from the beginning of the season on. I mean, that's a big if. We'll see what happens. PB Dubs in the building. What up?
PB, what's happening?
Zamir White might be the man next year. Jacobs walks, I think. We'll see what happens there. That's an absolute.
They could franchise him again.
It's an absolute possibility. Brees Hall finished RB6 after tearing his ACL. Yeah, exactly. Held on to White in a lot of dynasty leagues. Yeah, for sure. Average value right now for him is probably some people dropped him, which I saw was kind of crazy after the injury. Like everybody thought it was actually really done. But I mean, I hold him. I mean, I probably wouldn't pay more than a third for him, but probably worth something around that. Because he also is up there in age too. So is he ever going to return to the 25 carry Nick Chubb that we are accustomed to? I don't know. I don't know. At this age
27
now,
years old? Yeah. Yep. That's 28.
Exactly. And how many more years? Does he have one more year on his contract?
I'm not even sure, but it's a legitimate thing. Like having that injury at this point in his career.
Yeah, 2024. That's it. 2025 he's a free agent. Apparently there looks like there's some kind of potential out in 2024 as well. But I doubt that. So he's got one more season, because then what happens after that? Do they franchise him at 29 or 30? It'll be 30 at that point. So
it's crazy because it doesn't feel like Nick Chubb is 28. And, for a running back, obviously that's getting into dangerous territory in terms of your value, what you could potentially get on, open market, etc. So off of a major injury, that's tough sledding.
Will said he was big on Javonte, but the injury zapped his burst and elusiveness. He looks like Zeke now. So he started getting some workhorse, some workhorse-ish work as far as, his carries. He started getting some good amount of carries. But, again, he's a guy that's coming back from a big, from a big injury as well. So, I think next year we'll see what happens with that. But, yeah, I mean, listen, that's why we hate running backs. This is why – we don't like investing in them or paying for them top dollar, because what happened to Javonte, could have happened to, Brees Hall or any of these guys, right? I mean, Brees Hall wind up coming back and being good, Javonte just didn't. And once these guys are good, automatically we vault them up to the top, right? I mean,
that's a real interesting point too, because his first 2 years, Javonte averaged close to 4.5. He's down to 3.5. So the efficiency you can see obviously is taking a hit.
Well, yeah, I mean, and to be fair, obviously the offense has been shit the last 2 years. I mean, the offensive line, they just, I don't know, man. It's very just weird, the offense, because like Russ is playing.
You loved some Javonte.
I used to love Javonte. I was huge on Javonte back then. I made the worst trade I ever made in Dynasty back when Javonte was the hot shit. Javonte was the hot commodity. Okay.
Yep.
Cheetah was just traded to Miami. Everybody was not on the whole Cheetah situation with Tua and Miami. I wanted to get out of the situation. And I thought Javonte was going to have a huge year, and he winds up tearing his shit. I traded Javonte for Cheetah. In hindsight, I'm fucking huge L, but I've came back from that. My team is fucking solid as hell. So, but it's just an example like of just a bad trade that I made trying to bet on a running back, and it turned to shit. It really hurt me, because if Javonte finished as a top 5 guy, then like I'm Gucci. Like, okay, yeah, Cheetah is Cheetah, but at least I've got like a top 5 running back. The rest of my team is good. So, but it wound up turning out really bad. So,
yep.
I just don't want to invest in these running backs when, they can get injured and everything goes to shit from there. The moment Nick Chubb gets 25 carries in a game is the moment I trade him. Oh, for sure. For sure.
I ain't mad at that. I am not mad at that.
Sean Watson, dead money is 200 mil. No way they keep Chubb. Yeah. So listen, if Chubb's out, then boom. That's even worse. Javonte looks like Uncle Lenny even. Giants could go QB, but I mean, they did pay Danny Jones, so I think they've got at least one more year where I don't think they can get rid of him.
No, after they haven't out after 24 on Daniel Jones.
Yeah, workhorse backs there's very few of those guys, and everything is two-headed backfield, and it's a bunch of RB2s out there. We're deciding between a bunch of RB2s for our lineup, basically, if you don't have one of those top guys. So
facts.
You think how would Peyton handle Russ in the wrong or justified? I think he hated Russ from the beginning. It all like it started with like just his trainers at first too. Peyton's like, oh nah, ain't nobody bringing their own trainers in the building. Like
he shut that shit down.
Like, it started way back. And yeah, it's just he can do what he wants. He's fucking Sean Payton, like he's a Hall of Fame coach. But if I'm being like perfectly honest, like I'm a little upset at the way like he kind of handled it. Like I don't think that he had to do it in that particular way. Like if you don't like him, okay, but like there's no reason to kind of do what he did and then threaten like, all right, we're just gonna fucking bench you because now you got the Players Association involved. Like we all kind of thought he was innocent on fucking Bountygate. Was he really? I mean, now that you see this, it just raises questions. It's like, bro, what the fuck? Like, so yeah, it is what it is, but go ahead.
The thing that was interesting for me about the whole Russell situation was there was a game a couple of weeks ago where somebody messed up or somebody did something wrong, like an offensive lineman or a receiver. And then Sean Payton was on the sideline yelling at Russ. And we're all like, what the fuck did Russ do? Like, so I don't think a lot of people, and you've even heard a lot of people from his Seattle team come out and say like Russ was a diva, Russ was this, Russ was that, whatever. But listen, man, Sean Payton knew what he was getting into when he went to Denver, right? He knew Russell Wilson was the quarterback. So, for Sean Payton to go into that situation, and listen, they started off terribly. And credit to Russ for at least holding down that ship, right? Because when you're the franchise quarterback, you're the leader of that team, and that team could have went in the absolute tank. Now, that defense was pretty bad early on. But Russell Wilson's actually been pretty good this season. Like, he hasn't been a dumpster fire. Now, obviously, last season, set the standard pretty low. But, yeah, listen, I was never a big fan of Sean Payton because of the Bountygate situation. I think Sean Payton has an ego. And he's still living off that Super Bowl he won 15 years ago. And a lot of people, and he had Drew Brees, right? Like, so I think Russ got the shitty end of the stick. Some because of his play, some because of the person he is. But I just think it was just a bad match to begin with.
So I don't necessarily love Russ as a person either. I mean, shit, I think the whole "let's ride." I mean, he's corny sometimes.
It's cringe.
I mean,
it's cringe. Yeah.
Whatever. But that's just Russ. I mean, but he's still, a quarterback that can play. And yeah, I think hopefully he goes to a new team, and we'll see where he goes. But JC's asking some questions here about some running back. All right, let's get into the running back shit here. So, yeah, who is Dynasty RB1? I mean, there's a few different guys that you can throw up in here for this conversation about the Dynasty RB1. And, I mean, for me, we can talk about Gibbs. We can talk about Bijan. We can talk about Brees. If you're more of a win now kind of guy or you want to just kind of take it year to year, CMC, I wouldn't put CMC up there, but you can make an argument.
He's in the conversation
at one as well. So I think that he is in the conversation. So a few different guys that we can talk about here, but let's talk about Bijan first. Okay. Let's talk about Bijan because he was the Dynasty RB1 coming into the season, going to Atlanta.
Not even close. It wasn't even close.
Not even close. He was the RB1. And things didn't kind of work out how we thought they would. Now we still, RB12 on the season, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep, full PPR.
So yeah, I mean, he's RB12 on the season. He's got 203 carries for 948 yards with 4 touchdowns. He's got 78 targets, 51 catches for 384 yards on 3 touchdowns. So 7 total tutties on the season.
1,200 yards, over 1,200 yards of scrimmage, close to 1,300 yards.
Exactly, close to 1,300 scrimmage. I mean, he's still giving us solid production, but we know that he should be giving us so much more. He's not being given the opportunities that we feel he should be given. So does that automatically bump him down? Does that automatically take him out of the RB1 conversation if we're talking about right now? I mean, we know what he can do, but he is a running back. We know they don't last long. We know these guys get injured. So there's only so much of a window for these running backs to, produce and give us these huge seasons. So what is the thoughts on Bijan now? Is he still the RB1, or is this an actual conversation now that other guys can be ahead of him at this point?
So there's a caveat to this, and the one caveat that you didn't bring up was the coaching staff. Like that is the caveat, right? Because just take a quick peek at the numbers to support what I'm about to say here, right? There's games where he's had 19, 22, 16, 18, and 15 carries. Outside of those games, he's had 10, 10, 14, 14, 13, 11, 11, 10, and 12. 7 in there, a 1 mixed in. That was, remember that weird game where he got 1 carry because he was sick, apparently. But now, to be fair, the targets, I love the targets, right? He's got, 78 targets, and he'll probably finish with like 83, 84, somewhere in there. So that's fantastic. I love the targets in the passing game, but it just feels like that coaching staff is holding him back from being truly elite. Now, is that a product of them not wanting to wear him down? Is that a product of Arthur Smith just thinking he's smarter than everybody? I don't know. I can't answer that question directly, but I will say the biggest thing holding Bijan back from being the number 1 running back is that coaching staff in Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, coaching staff is obviously a big thing. Is Arthur Smith gone? Is he not gone? And it's rough because if you're looking at for just next year, obviously just that uncertainty makes you want to feel like, okay, do I feel safer with a Jahmyr Gibbs? Do I feel safer with a Christian McCaffrey? Do I feel
Breece
safer
Hall with Aaron Rodgers?
Breece Hall, especially with an Aaron Rodgers now coming back next season. So now comes into discussion of, Jahmyr Gibbs, right? He was coming in as pretty much the RB2 or 3, at least in the top 3, 4 for most people coming in, right behind Bijan. We expected a ton out of the gate as he was drafted as a, top 15 pick. And we didn't see that right off, right? And there were question marks. Okay, here we go. Now it's DeAndre Swift again. Monty's going to get all the touches. And, Monty got hurt a little bit. We saw Gibbs finally kind of show us what he can do. And then he kind of earned a role now for the rest of the season. And on the season now, RB8, 169 rushes for 915 yards, 9 touchdowns. Another 70 targets, 52 catches for 316 and a tutty. So really playing awesome on the field a lot more lately. And now he's seeming to be getting, since pretty much week 7-ish, it seems to be getting at least what I've been saying the whole time, like a 10-ish to 15 carries and like a 4 to 7 targets. Like that's kind of what we've been seeing. Now there's a few games where he didn't get those targets, and he's been a little bit kind of, I don't want to say up and down, but there's been a few dud games in there, but he's giving you just a ton of upside with the pass catching. And of course, when he's rushing too, we can see how electric he is. He's got, 9 rushing touchdowns on the season. And we always thought that Monty was going to be the guy that's yamming it in there. And for the most part, he is, but Gibbs is just getting just explosive plays. So now comes into the conversation. Is Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of Bijan? So we don't even have to talk about 1 and 2. Let's just talk about Jahmyr Gibbs Bijan for a second. Is Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of Bijan? Would you take Jahmyr Gibbs over Bijan?
I would, for a couple of reasons. Obviously, you laid out how awesome he is, the role he's carved out. He's proved that he's valuable when he's getting between 18 and 22 opportunities a game. For me, the 5.4 yards a carry on a significant amount of carries. What do we say? He had 169 carries.
Yep.
When you have 169 carries and you're averaging 5.4 yards a carry, that's a good enough sample size to let me know that this guy is amazing. Right. And another 70 targets to boot. And remember, he didn't have a role those first 4 weeks for the most part. Now, obviously, the Monty injury kind of opened the door for them to see what Gibbs can do. And he had that bust out game against Baltimore, as you said, in week 7, where he had the he had his first touchdown. And then he had the crazy game against Vegas where he ran for $152. So they know what he can do. And just to further the point a little bit, he's playing on a better offense. He's playing on a better team. He's playing for a better head coach. He's playing for a team that organizationally, we never looked at the Lions and were like, yeah, this is a really good organization. They're a good organization now. Like, because of their head coach, Dan Campbell, right? He's got those boys doing work, and he utilizes his best players. He's not dumb. And he knows that for them to go where they want to go and for them to be effective, Jahmyr Gibbs has to be an integral part of that offense, right? And they have it feels like Jahmyr Gibbs complements David Montgomery perfectly. Like it feels like they're the perfect complement where David Montgomery is getting 15 carries a game and Jahmyr Gibbs is getting another 10, 11, 12 with, as you said, 5-6 targets in the passing game. So they just have all the pieces that fit well, and he's utilized on a consistent basis every single game. Whereas we have to wonder if Bijan is going to get used 4 times a game or 20 times a game. It's Jahmyr Gibbs for me at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it is tough because, like, you can look at Bijan and say, okay, well, you know what? Right now, Bijan is kind of getting almost the same-ish kind of work as Gibbs, 10-ish to 15 carries, maybe 4 to 7 targets.
The eye test
obviously
on other things.
Obviously on a worse offense. So, I mean, how much worse can it get for Bijan? You could argue,
fair.
Right? You could also argue, okay, Jahmyr Gibbs is what, RB8 right now. Bijan is RB12. I mean, if things get better for Bijan, or if he's getting the 20 carries plus all the 5 to 7 targets a game as well, that is obviously going to vault him into the top RB finishes. So you could argue that maybe we're not as confident for Bijan next season, but maybe the year after. And I mean, obviously that's wishful thinking. And of course, the RB landscape changes, right, from season to season. Injuries happen and all that. So, I think for maybe particularly next season, for sure, you might want Gibbs over Bijan. But for the long run, would you rather have a guy like Bijan where we know that potential is that 20, 25 carries and the receptions and the targets in the passing game? Like, we know what that could be. Doesn't matter that we know what it can be, because it's just more important of what the coaching staff is going to do. It doesn't matter what we want or what we think, right? The coaching staff and the NFL is going to do what they want. And I think that is where you have to decide, do you want to go for that upside, or do you want to just say, fuck it, I know what Gibbs is. I know what he's going to give me. Like, why play that game with Bijan? Why should I take the chance on that?
Why does this feel like the same conversation we have with a teammate of his, Drake London? Well, it's the same conversation. Like, Drake London has like wide receiver 1, like you say, that build, that wide receiver 1 prototype, but they're just not being used in the way that we feel like they should be or could be, if they had the right head coach in place, and the quarterback to a certain degree. I think the quarterback matters as well a little bit. The quarterback matters a little bit less for a running back in terms of you just got to turn around and hand the ball off from that standpoint. But it concerns me. Now, I think Bijan has more of a workhorse type role or ceiling, I should say. Bijan has more of a workhorse type ceiling than Gibbs does, but Gibbs is just being utilized so much more effectively on a better offense with a better offensive line, better weapons around him that get him the ball. And he doesn't, I feel like Gibbs doesn't need 25 carries to be as effective as Bijan in their particular situations. All things being equal, right? Bijan is probably the better guy, right? He's the workhorse type guy, where as Gibbs is more of a Tony Pollard, where you want to keep him in that 15 to 18 range so he could have maximum efficiency. So there's caveats to this though, right? We have to look at it from the situations that they're in, because all things being equal, it's Bijan and it's not close, but all things are not equal. And these guys are on different teams with, all the things I talked about in terms of quarterback, head coach, wide receivers, offensive line, et cetera, et cetera. So those things are a factor. And at this standpoint, it's Gibbs.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, 25 touches. I mean, that, or 25 carries. In that matter, that is like the ceiling. That's what, we know that he can do. That's what we're hoping for, but is it ever going to get to that point? Like, he's supposed to be the next, Saquon-ish, like, he's supposed to get that workhorse role. Is that going to happen if a new coach comes in, or is it not? Like, or would you rather just not take that chance and just have Gibbs instead? So I think for me, like, I think I'm with you. I'd rather have Gibbs. And then when I know shit changes for Bijan and he might get that 25 touches, it's not going to cost you probably much, if anything, to go from Gibbs to Bijan. So, you might even get Bijan plus. Like, I'm okay with going from Gibbs to Bijan and getting something on top of it if we're at this point now where we have Gibbs valued over Bijan. So what do you guys think out there? You got Gibbs or Bijan? Who do you have over who? And then we're going to talk about the other two guys that I think are in this conversation, which are Breece Hall and Christian McCaffrey. Let's see what we got in here. Arthur Smith's a fantasy terrorist.
Yes, he is. Preach, Diaz.
Bijan depends on coach and QB. Okay. McCaffrey for one more year. Okay. We'll get into that. Kyron is there. Yeah, I can't put Kyron in there yet. But, I mean, it is a conversation. I guess some people have, I mean, do they bring someone else in? I think that's my fear about Kyron, is he's not the typical workhorse back. Like, by situation, he is getting the workhorse right now. But is that going to be the case next year? Do they bring somebody else in? He did get injured this year. So, do they bring somebody else in to help out a little bit? There's just no competition in that backfield right now. So Arthur Smith is fired. Bijan's number 1B. Okay.
Yeah, I can see that. Like I said, all things being equal, it's Bijan, but all things are not equal at this point.
They don't use Bijan like they should. Yep. He's got, okay. So Song's got Gibbs in front of him. Will's got Gibbs over Bijan. Okay.
It's just really disappointing too, because we see what the potential is, right? Bijan's had those games where we're like, his first game, right? He broke out. I think he had like a receiving touchdown his first game or something like that. And we just saw some of the flashes. I think he actually made a play in week 2 against my Packers where he did like this crazy juke move and he just broke down the defender. And I was just like, this guy's amazing. And then a couple of weeks later, he's getting like 5 carries, 7 carries. But like, what the fuck is going on here?
Crispy said Kyron is on the rise. He is on the rise, but that's a ton of recency bias where we love to take advantage in Dynasty and selling these guys at these peaks right now. I mean, listen, Kyron could be the guy also next year. I could totally accept that fact, but I don't want to bet on it. And if I've got a chance to come off of him at top 5 running back, like in Dynasty value, I'm absolutely going to come off of that and go grab me a wide receiver, because that is just way too high to play with. He's a guy that I don't think any of us expected to be a workhorse guy. Like they're giving this guy everything. But he's not your typical workhorse guy. He is a smaller back. We obviously did see him get injured this year as well. And the Rams been tried to get a running back for a while, like even with Kyron on the roster. And I just don't know how safe he is if they don't bring somebody else in. Now, if they do bring somebody else in and take a little bit of work, okay, maybe his maybe he gets like 70-30, even 60-40. Like that's still good in that offense with Matt Stafford and what's his name, McVay, saying that he's going to be back in there. So that gives you like a good, that does give you a good feeling, right? That he can be pretty safe, that he's going to get good touches. Now, is it going to be top 5 touches? I mean, we don't know. As long as that offense is good, if Puka, Kupp, Stafford are there, everything is in play, great. But is there not a possibility that they do bring someone else in, or they minimize the workload to a point where he's not top 3, top 5? And can we feel safer even after next season? I think that's the even bigger question, especially in Dynasty, right? Is can we feel safe after next season even for Kyren?
We've talked about this on several occasions, and it rings true for virtually every running back out there outside of the top, 4-ish guys. Like it's a year-to-year thing, right? And then you factor in injury on top of it. It makes it even more of a shit show. I think Huss said it, where it's just like, it's crazy. It's really crazy for the running back situation. So you kind of just have to cross your fingers and hope that you have good luck or hit on the right guy at the right time, like a Kyren. You know what I mean? Like you catch that lightning in a bottle for a year or two, because it can all change very quickly. Remember James Robinson from Jacksonville when he was going nuts? How quick did that last? Not very quick. So not very long. So these things happen. All
right?
kinds of guys,
any of these guys that don't have the draft capital, and they just wind up falling off fast. And like, right, we don't know with Stafford after next year, like what kind of happens with that as he's getting older. McVay as well. Like if they don't finish as a good season, like what happens after that with the QB situation, with Kupp, like, how good is that team at that point? So
it's just so volatile.
I think that,
especially if you don't have the draft capital.
Yeah. So I think that you can feel safe with Brees. You can feel safe with Gibbs. You can feel safer, with Bijan, I want to say as well, because I think that, just for the next few years. But if you're just looking at it in that hindsight, like 1 year at a time, like, yeah, you can say Kyren is up there.
Yeah, production wise, and the volume that he gets, right? The percentage of running back snaps that he gets, he's just absolutely. He probably has the highest percentage when he plays in his games of running back snaps. Like he has to be in the top 3 or something like that. And I didn't even look at the numbers. So it's it's just so volatile at that position. Like it's so true.
I think Diaz says it good here. I'm all for Kyren being ranked in the top 5 running backs in Dynasty. I'm not okay with paying top 5 running back prices. He's a 5th round running back that they're running into the ground. I agree 100%. Where I think it's it's a lot of just more of the value where everybody hasn't valued. You don't want to pay for Kyren at top 5 running back prices. You don't want to pay for that. So I agree 100%. They're absolutely running him into the ground. He's a smaller guy. We saw him get injured earlier. So, but he gets absolutely everything. So that is the one thing with Kyren. Bijan's ceiling can be way higher than Gibbs. Lions have so many weapons. I agree. Brees is 4 for Will. Rather have a coach in my RB go for 2 5 times in a row from the 25 type balls than Arthur Smith's Nazi mustache having ass scheming a double reverse flea flicker to me Cole Pruitt. Yeah, I'm with you there, Song. I'm with you there. JC said he's still got Bijan as RB1. Worst possible situation. Exactly. Like, depending how you want to look at it, I'm with you. I'm with you for real. So I think the same way there. Rogers, RB's hard. Go on to the next. Yeah. Fighter guys do have draft capital. Look at Trey Sermon, 2nd round guy cut after 2 years, right? And he was just the first guy. Came to mind. Yeah. And that was with fucking Shanahan, because they just don't give a fuck. They're just gonna play, they're just gonna play the best guy. But in most cases, it absolutely matters. And there are also, of course, cases where it doesn't, and it didn't turn out that way. But for the majority of the time, most of the time, you see the draft capital, it does matter, and there's just higher percentage of hits. But yeah, Trey Sermon for sure was a disappointment, like without a doubt. Make sure to not mention McVay's wife. People were trying to get him in the sub league for a 25-second. Like, nah, bro, found money, pay me or go lose. For sure. He's definitely in the first range now. But all right, we talked about Gibbs, we talked about Bijan, we talked about Kyron. Let's talk about Breece Hall, who will finish in the season strong on a team that lost Aaron Rodgers. Not great offensively, but came away with, at least as of right now, 74 catches on 93 targets, 579 yards for 4 tutties. Another 4 touchdowns on the ground, 816 yards, 186 carries, pretty much finishing, RB4, depending on your league. So had a ton of catches. So Breece Hall, who was pretty much the RB1 before Bijan came along, right? And Breece wound up getting hurt. So Bijan back, finishing as of right now in the top 5. So what do we think about Bijan and his season?
You mean Breece?
I mean Bijan. What do we think about Breece Hall and his season so far?
It's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of gotten overshadowed because that team has been so bad and there was such high expectations with Aaron Rodgers coming into the fold, and with one second, I was just getting some messages from the group chat. So yeah, Breece Hall season's kind of gotten overshadowed with how bad the Jets have been versus what their expectations were. And Breece Hall hasn't been incredibly effective. Like there's games where he's had 2 yards a carry, 1.5, 3.25, 1 point. Like his efficiency hasn't been good, and that's because the Jets stink. Their offensive line stinks. Like we know that. So for him to be in the top 4, that kind of feels like a floor, right? Like if he's doing this well on this bad of a team, and I think he's buoying a lot of his production with those catches, because if you look since basically week 8, he's had 9 targets, 6 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets, 9 targets. Bro, he had 16 targets against Washington in week 16. So he's really doing his thing in terms of buoying his production on a really bad team. If they improve the offensive line this offseason and Aaron Rodgers is back, he could be RB1 overall next season, potentially, right? With the way Aaron could get him the ball, if that offensive line is at least a little bit better. So overall, this is probably about as good as you could have hoped for Breece Hall, considering all the other factors that went on with the Jets this season.
Yeah, for sure. Now, just looking at the receptions, obviously, for Breece Hall and the targets, could you argue that next season with Aaron Rodgers back, it is not going to be that high, because Aaron Rodgers is actually throwing the ball downfield and not dropping it down underneath as much? But you can also argue that Breece will make up for that in rushing yards and rushing touchdowns. Still a workhorse guy. I mean, we've seen I'm gonna pull up Aaron Jones real quick. Like, we've seen Aaron Jones finish as a top 5 guy, top 10 guy numerous years with Aaron Rodgers, 50-ish catches or so. So I do think that the targets and receptions come down, but I think he still can have 300 to 500 yards receiving, but then he can reach that maybe 1,200, 1,300 yards rushing in a better offense and more rushing touchdowns.
That's where I was going to go with that. How many more rushing touchdowns would he have? Because if Aaron's there, right, you got to spread out a little bit. You got to respect the receiving core. What if they go out there and get Devontae Adams this offseason? Like, especially down there at that goal line. So like I said, for Breece, and I didn't even realize Breece Hall was RB4. Now, he did have that monster game against Washington, as I said, where he had 43 points in full PPR. So that kind of vaulted him, but he's had some really good games. Houston, he had a really good game. Denver in week 5, he had a really good game. Philly, he had a solid game. So he's been probably about as good as you could have hoped for. Like I said, he hasn't missed any games, right? I think week 2 he may have gotten injured. He only got 4 carries or something. I don't know what was going on there. He wasn't being utilized very much the first month because I guess coming off the injury, etc. That's why they brought in a Dalvin Cook. So even throw that on top of it, right? The numbers could be a little or even a little more skewed because he virtually didn't do a ton the first month outside of that first game. But imagine this is the floor.
Yeah, I mean, that's big time, right? I mean, we know what he can do. So, yeah, I mean, he's out in the conversation for that RB1. I mean, and then you talk about CMC, right? The other guy in that conversation, right? CMC, more of a win now guy. I mean, these guys are win now too. Obviously, they're putting up points, but CMC. Where is he at? Hold on. Let me pull him up real quick.
He's obviously number 1. He's a number 1 overall player.
Almost 1,500 rushing yards right now. Another almost 600 receiving.
21.
21 touchdowns. Just unreal at 27 years old. Now we do see obviously the decline, that comes with it. And the injuries that can happen as they get older. He's a little banged up right now, actually. Looks like he's going to be out for this week.
Well, that's because they clinched the 1 seed.
And of course they clinched as well. But, I mean, he did come up a little bit hobbled. You had mentioned, with the usage on Christian McCaffrey that you were a little bit worried about that.
Yep.
For next season. Going into next season, we've seen him finish as RB2 last year, RB1 so far this year. He's got a lot of miles on him. Is he a guy that starts to decline, or are we still riding him out for the next few years? Like, he is in the conversation for that RB1 in Dynasty, even at his age. So what do you think? And is he really in that conversation, or can he just be taken out just by age automatically? Or are we just taking the production and saying this is just overruling the youth and the years to come with what Christian McCaffrey is right now? Does he still have maybe 2, maybe 3 years left?
I think this is a similar conversation to what we have when we talk about wide receivers and we include Tyreek Hill in there, right? It's the same exact parallel because the production is so incredible that it does start to overrate or overtake the youth of the other guys, right? It starts to become like, damn, this guy is just head and shoulders production wise above all even these younger guys, right? The production is just there. So yeah, I mean, listen, he's in the conversation. The thing, and you had mentioned it, I get concerned with his usage, and the way San Francisco runs the ball with him. Like, they're running him between the tackles. Like, that makes me nervous. But his carries have tapered off a little bit towards down the stretch of the season. He hasn't had a 20 carry game since week 11 against Tampa Bay. So, and the most carries he's had in the game is 22, and that was week 1. But why does it feel like he's had like 25, 30 carries in a game? Doesn't it feel like that from the eye test?
Because he's catching the ball and fucking running as well. So they're throwing those, those little short ones. He's got some games where, 5 catches, 5 catches, 6 catches, 5 catches, 6 catches.
Even the targets are crazy.
So he's getting a shit ton of targets and catches.
So Christian McCaffrey currently has 330 or 355 opportunities between targets and rushing attempts. 355. That's a lot for their style. And San Francisco they're a physical type team, right? It's a lot for me, and it definitely concerns me. But because the production is so good, because they have a really good coach, a really good team, a really good offensive line, all the things we talked about with San Francisco before, is that I still feel comfortable over the next 2 to 3 years about Christian McCaffrey being productive. But it does concern me, the usage. Like, I honestly thought, and remember going back to the beginning of the season, we were talking about Eli Mitchell should be involved. If Eli Mitchell's getting 8-10 carries a game, especially down there at the goal line, they're not fucking around at the goal line. They're using Christian McCaffrey at the goal line. So that was really interesting to see early on in the season, and that kind of made me a little nervous. Like, damn, is he going to be able to hold up? And Christian McCaffrey has had some injuries in the past, right? Remember those couple of years in Carolina? I think he finished RB1 and RB2, and then for 2 straight years he was just injured. So it was like, damn, maybe all that usage in Carolina, kind of caught up with him. And then, he goes to San Francisco and they sprinkle the fountain of youth on the guy, and he's just an absolute maniac again. So I listen, he's amazing. He definitely belongs in the conversation because of the productivity, the absolute just overwhelming productivity. But it would concern me going into next year to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could put him at RB1, but it really depends on how you look at it. And Diaz has mentioned something about that in here. It really depends like how you want to rank them, because rankings are obviously very subjective, right? You have your age, you have the production, you have, the coaching staff, the future, the contracts. Like there's so many things obviously that you can look at. Is it like startup rankings? Is it, by value? Like, how do you want to look at it? So being all in all, I mean, I'm okay with any of these guys really being anybody's RB1. They're all guys that are great running backs and deserving to even say they are RB1 dynasty running backs. But Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, CMC, for me, at least, those are the 4 guys that are in the conversation. And if I had to rank them, I'd probably have Gibbs. I probably have Gibbs, Breece, Bijan, CMC. I mean, that's probably how I would rank it, mainly just because of CMC's age. I know at any point in time, like that's a ticking time bomb, and you can say that about any of these running backs because they're running backs, obviously. But the reason why I kind of would rank him that way is because I think right now, in most people's eyes, Jahmyr Gibbs is the RB1. Bijan and Breece, I mean, you could kind of go back and forth, but people still love Bijan. So that's why I'd probably have him second, and then have Breece, or either or. I mean, they're kind of the same for me, and then CMC. So, if you want to go by value-wise, I think, you can argue that. And all of these guys are worth like 2+ firsts. I mean, you're not getting these guys for cheap. And, that's why I don't recommend buying any of these guys. Like when you're talking about buying some of these guys, I mean, these guys cost way too much to buy.
Too much volatility.
If you're in a startup and you want to take one of these anchor guys and kind of build around them, like, okay, like that is one strategy that you can use. I wouldn't really advise it because one injury kind of crushes that. But that would be kind of the only way that I would probably have one of these running backs. Like I don't want to buy some of these guys. That's why we like to stash running backs. That's why, Kyron Williams, Jerome Fords, like I've got them on a ton of teams. I'm just stashing backup running backs and just hoping one of these guys finally gets a chance through injuries that always happen at the running back position. So what do you got here, Hammer? What is your kind of order of these guys, or how exactly do you look at it? Are you looking at it as, a kind of startup value? Or are you looking at it as kind of, trade value or production? Like, what do you factor in? How do you factor in your rankings?
I think you have to factor them all in. For me, it is the combination of production and situation. That's kind of how I look at it. And I brought that up with the Gibbs Bijan difference, right? Because like I said, all things being equal, Bijan is the guy over Gibbs, but the situation matters, right? Gibbs is playing on a much better team with a much better offense line, all that good stuff. So I would have Gibbs 1. I would have Bijan 2. I would have CMC 3 and Breece 4. That offensive line with the Jets is a concern for me. I don't know if you can fix that entirely in one season. The Aaron Rodgers thing should help, but I think Christian McCaffrey is just overwhelming production, and it doesn't seem like there's anything that's going to stop him other than injury from being productive over the next 2+ seasons. So it would be Gibbs 1, Bijan 2. If Bijan had a different coaching staff and whatever, he'd be 1. CMC 3, Brees 4. But as you said, man, all these guys can be interchangeable in terms of, obviously, Christian McCaffrey with the age notwithstanding, these guys can be interchangeable because we know how awesome they can be. But the running back situation is just such a fucking crapshoot. It really is.
It's just weird because even though I'd put CMC at 4, like if I had to choose between any of these guys, yeah, I want CMC, right? Because I'm just I want that. He's gonna be the RB1. Like, I mean, if you're telling me he's scoring 20 tutties on a good offense, like that's the guy, of course, that you want. But the problem is he still cost you 2+ first, but he's not, like, he shouldn't be worth that because of the age, but he is just because of the production that he's putting out. So it's like, it's very hard to go out and buy any of these guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do y'all think? How would you guys rank these guys in order? From 1 to 4, I guess, or maybe you have somebody else in that top 4. Bijan, Gibbs, Brees Hall, CMC. How do you guys have them, or do y'all have anybody else in that top 4?
It really gets tough towards, especially when you're talking about the top of the top in terms of like separating them 1 versus 2, right? You kind of have to look for things in terms of, and I think Diaz actually brought up a good point in terms of tiers. And we do the running back, wide receiver, quarterback tiers. We've done that a couple of times. I'm pretty sure we'll do it again before the season starts. So I think that's a really good point by Diaz in terms of tiers, because it's hard to separate some of these guys, right? It's hard to like pick hairs with certain guys. And then obviously when you factor in the age of a CMC versus the youth of a Gibbs, Bijan and Brees, and then the other factor is the teams they're on. So that's when it becomes tough to split hairs. But yeah.
Yeah, and then how are you tiering them? Are you tiering them just on the production? Are you tiering them on the age, right? There's a bunch of different ways that you can do it. So, but yeah, you can tier down, get seconds and thirds. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah. CMC is a Kelsey tier. People think he fell off, but he finished tight end too. Yeah, that's true. He did. But he fell off compared to what he's done and like
by his standards.
Expected for his standards. True. So, consider ETN possibly in that group. I don't really. In the top 4, no.
Top 8, maybe?
Let's pull up.
Currently RB2. He went on that crazy touchdown.
He's RB8 on keep trade cut.
That's why I said 8.
He's got a ton of tutties. Right?
Not crazy efficiency, though. 3.79 a carry.
Yeah. And
the touchdowns is what's keeping him there.
Like, he hasn't had 20 carries since week 12. Like, he was getting just a ton of more carries earlier in the season.
And the touchdowns. He went on a 3-game streak where he had 2+ touchdowns.
Yeah, he's only got 1 game over 100 yards. He's involved in the passing game a lot more, at least, than he was last year. So that's a good sign. But what can we expect? I mean, from this offense, Trevor Lawrence going forward, are they keeping Ridley? Like,
yeah.
What are they doing? I mean, after those kind of 4 guys that we talked about, Bijan, CMC, Gibbs, and Brees, I mean, you've got guys like Jonathan Taylor, Achane, Kyron, right? ETN, Kenneth Walker. I mean, Saquon. Yep. You've got guys like that coming after. I mean, is it JT after that? Is it Achane? Is it Kyron? Right? I mean, you can go with any of those guys. They're all kind of the same almost. I feel safer with JT or Achane than I do with Kyron. So, I mean, if you're looking at the longevity and contracts and stuff, like, you can put those guys over Kyron. ETN is another tough one. Kenneth Walker, and you kind of have to almost slot those guys behind those other guys, right? Like, I don't know. It's tough. I think you can make an argument for any of those guys, really.
I still like ETN because I do think like Jacksonville has a solid team. I don't think they lived up to anyone's expectations this year in terms of offensive production. Now ETN's been RB2, but I think that's been kind of skewed a little bit by the touchdown production, which, I mean, listen, 11 touchdowns is really, really good, but it's been sporadic. You know, there's been games where he's been really good, 25, 30 points, and then there's games where he's been bad, 6.5, 8, 6, 9. So, and the efficiency is what really concerns me, going from 5 yards a carry last year on 220 carries to 3.79 on 250 carries. Now, the receptions did go up. Obviously, he's got 67 targets, only 45 targets last year. So that's a good way to bolster yourself in terms of your ranking.
Yeah, I mean, he's got what, 2 more years and then the option. So there's another reason why you can kind of put him kind of behind all those guys we talked about, including JT, Achan. And then you've got, Saquon. Like, how far down can you put Saquon? I mean, he's 27, but still a workhorse guy. Does he stay on the Giants, or does he wind up going? I mean, he's
in the same
RB16 this season. I mean,
it's been bad, and he's in the same situation as a Josh Jacobs. Literally the same exact situation.
So
I think he's better, but running backs are just so damn fickle, man. It's that year to year, like you said, and it's so damn true. Where these guys you think are really awesome, and then the next year the team goes out and drafts, like, bro, how far did Kenneth Walker fall in our Dynasty subscriber league because they drafted Charbonnet?
Oh yeah,
like I think somebody got Kenneth Walker in like the 6th round or something like that.
ETN too. ETN fell with with Bigsby. So there was a ton. And listen, we're gonna do top 12 like rankings on each of the positions probably soon enough, and then we'll do like top 24 like before the season or as we get into the off season. So I think we'll start bringing some of that, and we'll try and tier them up as well as we did last year. So
yeah, buddy.
We shall see. Achan, if he could stay healthy. Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't love any of these guys that have that kind of value. Like, I just don't want to hold that at my running back position. There's got to be something on your team that you can upgrade to kind of make your team better for the long run. I mean, if you're competing, then absolutely it's great to have any of these guys. But even still, like, I'm okay with moving off if you can get one of those top wide receivers. So depending how you want to shape your team, it's just rough because, as we see, one injury just vaults them down. Javonte was once the top 5 running back. Now he's RB 15.
It happens that quickly for running backs. It really does.
Tony Pollard, RB 20 right now, after he was like a top 10 RB last season, or going into the season, right? Ramondre is all the way down here, RB 23. Like, shit hits the fan. I mean, Najee, RB 29.
Yeah,
Eckler, RB 30. Mixon, RB 26. I mean,
Henry, Aaron Jones.
Oh, Aaron Jones is RB 42.
There you go.
Ryan, what's up, Ryan? Dynasty full PPR. I think I get a first rounder for a Kelsey and a Pollard package.
Somebody would be crazy enough to do that.
Yeah, somebody will still like Kelsey.
like a mid to top tier team. Like if you're in a 12-team team, like somebody that's in 5th might say, fuck it, I'll just give up a first rounder, maybe in a little bit something to go for it.
Yeah, it just depends if they need a running back and a tight end, then they're more likely to give it up, right? So you know, it just depends if that's what if they need that, then I'm sure they'll give up a first. Kyron on the block in the sub league. Okay. Fuck Tony. Yep. Listen, we didn't particularly like Tony Pollard. I can say that. I took a lot of flack on Tony Pollard. I just didn't like him. He never had the workhorse load. We talked about that. We talked about the injury.
Perfect with the Zeke situation.
You know. HN is exactly what he thought he was. Super fast, pass catching back, profile size arrest. Absolutely, Diaz, 100%. 100%. Pollard 65 rushing yards away from 1K. Yeah, and listen, the amount of work that Tony Pollard got, like he is not producing what he should be with the amount of work that he's getting, with the goal line opportunities that he's getting.
Check this out, right? Last year, Tony Pollard in all 16 games rushed 193 times for 1,007 yards. That's 5.2 a carry, 9 touchdowns. Obviously, he did some good stuff in the receiving game. But this year, he's ran it roughly 40 more times for 70 less yards. That's not good. 3.98 a carry. He is not meant to be a workhorse back.
RB15 on the season, and he was ranked very, very high. 12, 13, 14 in a 12-team dynasty. What kind of players should I be looking at if I were to try to package 3 picks for a player? Is it 1 QB or is it super flex? And what is your situation? Like, do you need some veterans? Are you contending? You know, can you buy some veteran guys that can help you score some points? I mean, Diggs could be on the block, right? I mean,
Devontae Adams,
Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, any of these guys could be on the block that you can spend some of these picks on.
Said 1 QB.
1 QB. Do people actually value those picks? Like, how is your league with the draft and with the picks? I mean, and what's your situation? People laugh when I traded Pollard for a late first, second, and Connor before the season. That manager didn't even make the playoffs.
It's a hell of a call.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. But that's kind of what he was worth. He's not going to be worth more. Even if he would have had like a better season this season, like he's still like, are they going to re-sign him? Or are they not? I mean, he's RB15, like purely based on like volume. I mean, he's only had 1 season where he's averaged under 5 yards a carry.
This season.
And no, in 2020, he averaged 4.31, but under 4 yards a carry. Yeah, this is the first season under 4 yards a carry.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
But yeah, he's just not as fresh. I mean, even receiving, I mean,
the efficiency took a massive hit. It's that simple. When you get that much volume and you don't profile as that type of guy.
4 yards less per catch. He's got no receiving touchdowns this year and only 5 rushing touchdowns. And if I'm not mistaken, he's one of the most used running backs at the goal line. Somebody have to check that stat, but
it's crazy to me.
Yeah, if
remember during the trade deadline, Dallas was rumored to be getting Derrick Henry. For that specific reason.
Speaking of which, wonder where Henry winds up going, but
that'll be interesting. They were talking about Baltimore. Dallas. I could see him going to Dallas.
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to the RB1, I mean, I guess that we are at least the majority of the community has Gibbs over Bijan. Brees is kind of a toss up with Bijan, right? You can kind of go either or there. And then CMC Some have him after, some have him ahead of those guys, just based on, you know, what he's doing obviously right now, and that he could be fine for the next couple of years. So, I mean, I even think about it sometimes too, like maybe I should put CMC all the way up there.
It's tough to split those hairs, right?
Absolutely. The only problem is you can't get, like, I guess the other reason why I have him there is, like, value wise, is you can't get what you want for CMC or what he's actually really worth because of the production that he puts up. Because his age is up there, you cannot really get, you know, what you really want. Where if you have a Bijan, if you have a Gibbs, if you have a Brees, a manager is more likely to give up, you know, more than what they would for CMC. So looking at it like from that perspective is kind of another reason why I kind of have CMC over there, because I think I've got to give up. You might have to give up, you know, a Brees, or you might have better luck giving up Brees or Gibbs or Bijan to go and get like a top wide receiver than you would trying to give up a CMC, right?
Yep.
Not really contending or tanking. Weird situation where I have enough good players where I never be any worse than 7th or 8th in the league, but I don't have enough to be better than 3rd or 4th. So can you attach those picks to current wide receivers or running backs that you have to try and tier up, right? I mean, you don't want to make those picks. If you're 7th or 8th, that means that you probably have some guys that do have some value that you can probably add to those picks to go and get, you know, some guys that can actually help you win, get you into that top 3.
JC, why don't you send us your roster? Maybe we'll do a roster review. This sounds like a good one to do.
Yeah, you can do that too. Bottom right-hand corner, Dynasty Life, the number 4 ever at gmail.com. Do that because we're going to start doing roster reviews as well. Tony been stuffed more times on the goal line than Jenna Jameson in her prime.
Yo, Will, that sounds like a Diaz, like something Diaz would say. That's hilarious.
Song said, yeah, CMC RB1. Yep. Diaz said trade out of the 24-second and the trade out for a 24-second and 25 first. Wait till you see who the warp monster is in season. Spend a 25 first on them. Hold liquidity until you have more information. Yeah, I mean, you can do that as well. Trading back, trading into the next season. I mean, I have a ton of like 3rds and 4ths in some leagues. I'm not making all those picks, but I mean, if I can trade out into next year picks, you know, I'd love to do that. So that's where I have some ammunition for next season on contending teams. Can buy some veterans, can buy some maybe, you know, backup running backs that come onto the scene after guys get hurt. What do we think of Fields in 2024 if the Bears keep him and draft Harrison Jr., top 5 dynasty QB with DJ Moore and Marvin?
That's a tough one for me, especially because Justin Fields doesn't have the security yet, right? Like Justin Fields was almost going to get traded last year, right? They're not making the playoffs this year. They always have this weird, like when it doesn't matter anymore, Justin Fields plays well. He runs around a little bit. Now, I will say, I would think that they should keep him and build around, but I could see a world where they're like, I guess the option I could see them going with more likely than not is trading out of that number 1 pick, like you said earlier, Blanc, and, you know, getting Neighbors at like 5 or 6 or whatever, 8, 10, whatever the case is, trading down, taking Neighbors and being able to fill out the rest of that roster, maybe build up the offensive line a little bit, etc., wherever they need pieces, and keeping Justin Fields, because remember, they still have the 5th-year option. So that gives them another year to kind of, you know, kick the can down the road for another year. So that's an interesting tack. But if they get Marvin Harrison, then listen, they could be really good. But there's a lot more that goes into it than just having good wide receivers. So
true.
You know, they need to put it all together, right? We need to see Justin Fields put it together consistently. This is his 3rd year now. Like when there starts to become a book on you after a certain amount of time and you haven't put it all together.
For For sure. I mean, he definitely have to finish top 5. I mean, there's the possibility is definitely there. I mean, he did that without like weapons, just rushing the football. So I think it's a possibility, but he's kind of a bargain, I guess you can say, like as of right now, as far as his value, like where you can get him in drafts or what you can get from trading. But finishing up the season strong that'll be tough. Tier break after Gibbs, Breeze, CMC. Yep. I bought CMC when Achane was hurt. I traded Achane at 24 first and 25 first. Okay, so Achane and 2 first for CMC won the championship. Worth it. Yeah, in that case, I mean, listen, if you're winning the championship and you're getting 2 CMC, especially when like you took advantage of the value of Achane and said, you know what, I'm gonna go get a top guy. So I mean, you won, so that's a late first. Basically, an Achane, I mean, for CMC, like I'll take it. And you're still good with CMC. You still got a championship squad, I'm guessing. So, yeah, I mean, the 25 first is going to be late as well. So you can kind of chalk that up to like 2 seconds almost at that point.
To me, anytime you win, the answer is yes. If you win the championship, is it worth it? That the answer is always yes to that. From my perspective, and listen, we were talking about it earlier where CMC is still going to be really good. So there's one thing I did want to bring up really quick was the RB1 thing where no guy finishes RB1 back-to-back seasons. Now, McCaffrey can finish RB2 and it's kind of, tomato, but do you think that has an impact? Do you think that's a real thing where, Christian McCaffrey could take a little bit of a step back next year and maybe finish RB5?
Of course, it's a possibility. I mean, I think he'd probably have to get injured for that to happen. I think if he's healthy, like he's fine, but does he get injured?
That's the workload, man.
I mean,
that's what we're talking about. Yeah,
that's what you worry about. And typically, any of these workhorse guys are going to miss a game, 2 games, maybe 3 games. Like you can always expect him to miss a few games, but I think for the most part, like we're okay with CMC, but that time will come sooner or later. My bad. Hold on. I missed this one. Could you get Brees or Bijan for CMC, you think? Yeah. I mean, if you got CMC, I'm sure you can probably tear down if they're a contending team. I mean, maybe even if not, like if you've got a young guy like Brees or Bijan, I mean, do you go get CMC? Like,
that's a tough prospect because CMC is kind of like that 2-year window guy. Same thing with Tyreek Hill, as I was talking about earlier from the wide receiver standpoint. Like it's the same exact situation. So listen, man, if you have the rest of the team around it to go out and win for the next 2 years, then yeah, you might consider that and just push all your chips to the middle of the table. So I guess we would have to see like that, what that exact trade would look like, what the rest of your team looks like, the rest of the league. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, if you need the running back to win, otherwise, whoever I can get more for, if I can get a better return for Breece Hall, then yeah, give me Breece over CMC. I mean, it all kind of depends on your league and kind of what your situation is. If you're going for the win or not. Is it time to try and sell high on Kamara? Can we comfortably view him as a top 10 guy next year?
I wouldn't say comfortably. I mean, Kamara actually played really well this year. I think a lot of people, his stock was down coming into the season because he had the suspension early on. And then we just weren't quite sure what he could be. And he turned out to be pretty good value, RB9. Had some really, really awesome games after the suspension, cooled off a little bit. But I mean, even though Kamara is 28, he's kind of like that Austin Eckler type running back where he's not going to get a crazy ton of carries. So that doesn't concern me as much. I think his longevity is a little bit better than some of these kind of workhorse between the tackle guys. Because of his receiving ability, I would say yes, just because of his ability, like I said, to be a pass catcher, a big time pass catcher. that offense isn't great. You know, I'm not that excited about that offense, but considering he only played 13 games and he's still currently a top 10 running back, that's pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, listen, if you're not competing, then obviously you're getting rid of Kamara. I mean, if you're competing,
Right.
then you want to keep him, then that's fine. So it really just depends on your situation. And you're not going to get much for him. I mean, maybe you'll get a second. Maybe a second and a piece. I mean, yes, at first are never going to be more cheaper than they are right now. Yep, absolutely. That is something I would say. Ryan said he says Bears would take Caleb and Neighbors. Yeah, that's a possibility. I mean, they could reset the clock, which I think DS says down here at the bottom. They could reset the clock at the QB position, absolutely, and wind up trading away Fields. I mean, we've heard some rumors of Atlanta, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, absolutely, they have a bunch of different ways that they can go here. It'd be interesting to see because I think. And Poles' what's his name? Ryan Poles' job is at the cusp. Like, I don't know. So we don't know really what's going to happen. Are the new guys going to come in or not? I mean, DJ Moore's making a strong case for Fields. I mean, we've seen the support that he's giving him so far. So, and the fans, of course, you know, we heard him chanting. So
what's crazy about the Bears situation is with their little late season surge, right? They had obviously the number 1 pick from Carolina, but they were in like the 1-4 position for most of the season, and then obviously they started winning some games. Like they're at the 10 spot now, you know. So a guy like Neighbors could be off the board by the time they get to 10, right? They could. I mean, I hope they don't beat the Packers, but whatever. In a situation where they do beat Green Bay, maybe they slide even further back. What if they fall to 12 or something like that? So that's actually very interesting that the Bears kind of had this late season surge where it's not going to be the 1 and the 4 now. It's going to be like the 1 and the 10, the 1 and the 8, something like that.
For sure. Yeah, Diaz. I mean, listen, if Fields goes somewhere else, absolutely. Lamar get to stepping.
Coaching does matter.
In the past 2 years, I traded away Hurts, Chase, and Stroud in separate deals to stack my lineup. One this year, have the 101 rookie pick. Okay.
It's pretty nice.
Awesome. Thoughts on Dobbins coming back? I mean, we don't know.
Man, that Mitchell injury that hurt my soul. That Mitchell injury really hurt my soul because it looked like he was on his way to really carving out a nice role in that Ravens offense.
Yeah, I mean, JK's a free agent in 2024, so we don't even know if he's going to be back on the Ravens, right? So we'll see what happens there. JC said he's reaping the benefits now. Sold his soul for championships. Okay. Listen, that's worth it sometimes. Now you got to recoup a couple years.
I'm in a similar situation, so I feel that.
Yeah, JT is a guy that a lot of people are down on, so I kind of like his value a little bit too. I mean, I'm still not buying him, but I have CMC looking to trade out. Yeah. I mean, see if you can grab one of the younger guys or you tear down. I believe Marvin Harrison and Neighbors are closer than consensus thinks. Yeah, they could be. They could be. I mean, we've seen what Neighbors did this year. But they can both be top 10 picks. It's possible. In that case, like Neighbors will be in, top 10 dynasty wide receiver. Marvin Harrison's already like cemented in the top 5 pretty much.
If it weren't for the quarterbacks, he'd be going higher.
So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. That's true. Had the Rodgers-Adams duo, 2 straight MVP years. Yeah. Anytime you have anybody with that magical season, I mean,
it
like
can happen.
CMC's having.
Burrow and Chase a couple of years ago.
Burrow and Chase. Colts offense looks to be in good hands. Just signed a nice contract, one of the safest RBs in Dynasty. That's true. Listen, I like JT, and I like that. Like he's a guy I like might actually. I don't know. I might be lying. Might actually draft in like a startup just because you can probably get him like decently late, where like But I don't know. It all depends. But yes, I do like JT. If you can get him for cheap, then I'm okay with that. Or if you can move from a Bijan Gibbs, Brees Hall tier down to JT plus, like, it might cost you JT in a first to go and even get a Brees Hall, Gibbs, Bijan type. I'll take the first and move and tier down a little bit. Penix is great kind of in the pocket, like when everything is going right. Not great when kind of things go bad or when he's got to try and create for himself. But he's a fucking accurate quarterback. We've seen what he's doing this year, and it's going to be interesting to see how high he goes in the draft. Does he get picked in the top 15? Are the Vikings one of the teams that kind of are looking at a QB? I mean, so it's going to be very interesting with Penix, kind of what happens there. And as we get closer to the draft, I mean, we'll start to know more and more. But I always say quarterbacks are the hardest position to kind of to evaluate, to guess. I mean, we just don't know. So we kind of let the draft tell us a little bit, and then take it.
I'm looking at one of the Mel Kiper, I believe, mock drafts, and they don't even have Penix in the first round.
Yeah.
Now, his game yesterday, obviously, and his upcoming game in the college football championship could go a long way, right? We've seen guys kind of rise up the board based on these bowl games, these championship, these college playoff games. So it'll be really interesting to see how his stock goes.
Yes, I heard one should tear your Achilles. They're indestructible. Yeah, JK is indestructible now. Chubb is about to be indestructible.
We know Adrian Peterson was. Jesus,
I did hear that out the way. Cats, what are you willing to pay for JT? Yeah, what are you willing to pay for JT? It's a good question. Good to know what people are valuing him as. I think it's going to be either Caleb or Drake May. I mean, you could argue that the situation could matter. So
they have the Bears drafting Caleb Williams here.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see that all over. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think that it's going to be a real question once we get down to the actual draft and where they go, because people are going to look at CJ Stroud and be like, "Oh shit, Drake May. Maybe we should go for that guy. That's the bigger, more, NFL dude. Like, not that Caleb is not big, but he's not necessarily small, but a little bit smaller, at least more of a." I mean, go ahead.
To be fair, though, both of these guys that they're coming from, their schools have been notoriously bad at producing quarterbacks. Obviously, Caleb Williams with USC and then Drake May at North Carolina. So, I mean, regardless, they're going to go in the top 2-3-ish anyway. But that's just another thing that seems to kind of creep up as we get closer to the draft.
Yeah, I like Brooks. Traded JT for Gibbs straight up in the offseason. Good. Now going to flip Gibbs and a third back for JT plus a first. Okay, so you're flipping Gibbs and a third for JT and a first. Perfect. That's awesome. If you can do that, I mean, that's great. Listen, I've seen, some communities where JT is like not even in the top 10, or he's in the back end of like 8, 9, 10 for JT. So, I mean, there are people that are pushing up all these other guys, ETNs, Walkers, Rashard White's, Pacheco's, right? There are people that, don't necessarily value JT that high. So, or at least right now. Obviously, things could change as we get into the season, but Devontae Walker, some mock drafts have him going late first, early second, somewhere in the 25 to 35 range. Yeah, I mean, we are still really early in the process, so that obviously can change. I don't know if he can go in the first round. I really don't. We'll wind up seeing what happens. I do like him, but the draft will tell us. The draft will tell us a lot, also. And I haven't gone into detail with all of my guys yet, so we'll stay tuned on that. I'm sure I'll have something that gets put out in the next few months on wide receivers, as well as the running backs, quarterbacks, tight ends, as we did last year. So
really interesting. This mock draft has Michael Penix going 43rd overall, second round, to your Minnesota Vikings.
It's been all over. It's been all over. Rashard White. Rashard White is an interesting one. Rashard White, some people have him in the top 10, top 5, 6. Right now, he's RB11 on Keep Trade Cut. He's a guy that's got a ton of pass catching work, and he's got the workload this season. But he's one of those guys that, at least for me, I feel like he got the workload at his situation. Like, there's nobody else there. There's no competition for anything. I don't think he's great running between the tackles, and maybe they bring somebody in to do that. I just don't know. But if not, next year he could be seeing the same kind of work. So it's tough. It's one of those where it's like, I don't really know. And I think some people kind of have that kind of mindset, which is why he's still RB kind of 11 down here. But it's all over the place. It really depends on your league.
He's been an insane value this season for where you got him. A lot of these running backs have right? Kyron is another one that jumps to mind, who's been just an insane. Raheem Mostert, Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. But Rashard White is a guy like I'm trying to sell. I mean, a great season that he had. I mean, valued very high. I just don't know if that value is ever going to get any higher. So I'm trying to take advantage of it right now. McCarthy too. Like, yeah, I mean, McCarthy could go first round. Hell yeah. Absolutely. You could get a first on top of JT for Gibbs. I do think that's a possibility. I mean, it's not going to be in a lot of leagues, but there are going to be leagues out there where you could. Yeah, I'd be okay with that in something if you had to get the first. Yeah, I'm with that too, Cats. What do you think Dalvin Cook signs? I don't know. Ravens, maybe.
Ravens make sense. Dallas, potentially.
Rashard White saved me this year. Yeah, I feel you, Joe. I feel you. What about Chandler and Minnie? I don't know. I just don't know. Do we bring someone else in? I mean, we didn't have a ton of success necessarily on the ground, so I think he's a decent guy. He could carve out a possible third down role or something like that.
It's all relative, bro, especially with those running backs.
But yeah. But yeah, I guess that'll wrap it up, guys, for tonight. Dynasty RB1. I mean, that was a good convo. Few different guys, obviously, that we can throw in that conversation. So who is your RB1? But yeah, you got anything else you want to add on top of what we talked about here, Hammer?
No, man, it's been a good show. I'm excited to see how this playoff race is going to shake out. No Thursday game, so it's just Saturday and Sunday now. There's something about Saturday football that I love. Even if it's like 2 or 3 games, it fucking feels nice because it feels like a Sunday on a Saturday, which is nice. But yeah, excited to jump into some of this off-season stuff. Really want to do some of these roster reviews, see what you guys got going on with your rosters after the season's finished up. So yeah, go Pack, go.
Song said Cook to the Niners rumors. Okay, I could see that.
That'd be interesting.
I could see that. RB1 Lamar Jackson, yeah. Made a great trade for Garrett Wilson at the start before the Rodgers injury. Traded Addison, Downs, and what ended up being pick 3 for Wilson. You traded what? Addison, Downs.
And the 103.
And the 103. Oh, shit. Yeah, that kind of sucks. Yeah, that sucks. In hindsight, I guess. Because if you thought it was just going to be a late first.
Right. That's probably what he thought.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, it happens. We make bad trades. We make good ones. So
especially those early season trades, they could turn out to be really good or really bad, right? That there's nothing that's going to give you any indication of injury opportunity that's going to open up for somebody. So you just kind of have to live with it. And like Steve said earlier, sometimes you have to pivot, right? Go to a backup plan, try and recover, make some other shrewd moves. Maybe they're smaller moves and hope for the best.
Mm-hmm. For real. Appreciate you, Will. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate you, DS. Of course, appreciate everybody out there that came through. Guys, smash the like for us. Smash the subscribe if you're new. Appreciate you. We'll be here every Tuesday night. What's up with Vikings? Danny McBride, Dwayne McBride, Dwayne McBride. I mean, listen, he's on the practice squad. I mean, we had injuries. We didn't bring him up to play him. So I don't know. I don't know, but we'll see what happens next year. I don't know. Do we draft somebody? Do we bring somebody in? Do we just roll with Madison, Chandler, and Akers will be back? I mean, we wind up getting Akers. That's another not good sign. But I think Akers is a free agent actually. So we'll see what happens. I got him on a couple taxis, just chilling. So we'll see. Didn't ever think he'd have a bad season. Oh, okay. Jefferson, Burrow, Chubb. You traded that first. I feel that. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, that just goes to show you, right? Anything can happen. So, should I pick up Bo Melton and drop McBride? I mean, I'd rather have the running back just in case.
Yeah, I wouldn't go crazy on Bo Melton.
Yeah, I'd rather have the running back. But all right, guys. We out of here. Appreciate y'all.
You ready, Jerry?
I'm ready.
Just want to make sure you're ready, brother. Show me the money.
Oh, you didn't know?
Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling.
You put my shoes on, you wouldn't last a mile.
Summertime, wintertime, I'm on the grind. Yeah, I got the ring. I'm the champ. I'm the genie of the lamp. This is the gift I was given, so I just live by my hustle.
It don't make sense, but don't make a profit. So I hustle, ladies and homies. Make money, 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 money.